validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we're talking about this, that, and everything in between. Today is the day we're going to be getting into a lot of things that are in the business realm. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe. And new facts, hit those reaction buttons, because apparently we got a lot of them up there, and you guys can mash those reaction buttons as you enjoy the show. Make sure that you remember that we are live 7 nights a week. We typically start at about 10. We're a quarter late, but it's about 10 o'clock Central Standard Time, which is approximately 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time and 7 o'clock California time in the nighttime. Now, for those of you that are on the eastern side of the country or eastern side of the world, it is more to the magnitude of 4 a.m. Green Minutes time and 4 a.m. Universal Standard Time. Either way, special shout out to all the countries around the world that have been watching us on This and That throughout the year, the last 2 years. Greatly appreciate the support, on growing support. That's right, I said it, on growing support. We've actually crept up to about 23 to 24,000 subscribers. So we're making it slowly. It is a slow grind to get to where we're trying to get to. So definitely keeping an eye out on that. Special shout out to Twitch and Twitter X. For those that are watching us from there, you guys can hit the follow button. You can also tiptoe over to the YouTube side and hit that subscription button, because if in the event the show goes live, you'll get a push notification on your phone or your laptop, and then you can just dive on whatever platform that you feel more comfortable with diving on. Interactive podcasts, live open mic, open discussion, open forum scenario. So even if you're on Twitter, you guys can throw your comments in the comment section, and we can have a multi-platform discussion, since YouTube and Twitch will also be able to see your communication as well. Twitch, everybody will be able to see your communication, and YouTube, if you guys got something to say, we're going to put it on blast as long as it's all appropriate. If you want to get onto the show, you can click that link that's in the comment section. If you don't see the link, say something about it. The link will go back into the comment section if need to, for you guys to see. With that being said, if you click that link, approve the mic, approve the camera, it'll bring you onto the show, and then you'll be able to speak in real time. In addition to that, you'll be seen and heard and live, and we'll be making shorts out of the live. So if you come on here, you're going to be on a short, you're going to be on a live. So just note that what you say is important, because it's not just important because you're saying it. It's important because everybody's going to be watching it and listening to it for years to come, because I'm not taking nothing down. So try to keep your questions and comments reasonably appropriate. We do cater to individuals that are not yet of the age of 18, but are willing to learn about business, finance, and how to prove themselves, and how these two topics intertwine with one another. So as we build a very unique niche of financial and personal knowledge, that I have yet to see many take it the way I'm taking it. But as we develop this particular niche, you'll notice that it all starts making sense in the long run as we collaborate with one another. Now, we're going to be dealing with this enigmatic rise, where Trump has ignited a worldwide revolution of change from countries all over the world. People are responding to the tariffs, not necessarily in a positive fashion. We're going to be talking about the things that have been done, the things that he has done in response to that, and how this will impact the everyday American. And just because we're going to be talking about how it impacts the everyday American doesn't mean that we're not going to be talking about how it impacts other places around the world. Fundamentally, sourced out of the U.S., we're going to be talking about how the decisions of the American president is impacting the American people in the short-term, immediate scenario, and then how that trickle-down effect will impact the other countries that affiliate themselves with America through business, finance, and or trade. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to try to cover in the next 4 hours or so. Today is going to be a longer show because apparently I don't have any contracts until about 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to be here for a while, trying to cover all the bases. If you guys got any questions about any of the topics that we pull up, by all means, feel free to ask those questions, because I have no problem with trying to provide you with an answer. Typically, if your question is in line with the topics of discussion, I've probably covered the research on it either on today's show or on a past show. So I'll definitely be providing you with some answers on that. But if you've got some questions about it off topic, those topics are warranted, because on this and that, we talk about this, that, and everything in between. We went from business and finance to STEM topics to oh yeah, that's right, I was supposed to be doing something for Usman and I forgot about it. He was asking me about the best way to train. So I've got to get that information together for him, and I'll have to provide it for him tomorrow, because I spent so much time grabbing the information for today's show that completely slipped my mind. But like I said, we talk about all kinds of stuff on the show. So if you guys got a question, I'll provide you with the best answer that I can. But to be sure that I'm giving you the correct response to the question, I will definitely reinforce my knowledge with more information, and then follow up with you on another show. So it gives you kind of a reason to come back, because if you've asked me a question and I seen the question, then I should find an answer for the question. If I don't already have it, I'll go get it, bring it back to you. And one of the reasons why I like doing that is because I love getting knowledge, and I love sharing knowledge. Knowledge is supposed to be passed down from generation to generation. I know that my generation grew up in an era where we did not have anybody teaching us all the things that we needed to know to be successful. So we learned firsthand from the school of hard knocks. Y'all know that old phrase, failed 50 times over and graduated with a degree in suffrage. And we know how to get out there and make it do what it do. So we learned from firsthand poor decisions on how not to make bad decisions. And we probably would have been better off in life if we would have had more people around us that had knowledge, had skill set, had learned from their own personal mistakes, and took the time to teach us how not to make those same mistakes so that we could live a life that was less stressful and less problematic. So I'd take it upon myself, instead of being one of those motivational speakers that doesn't actually help you motivate yourself or improve yourself. I'm actually going to tell you there are ways to make yourself better. And we talk about it on a daily basis. We talk about ways which you can make more money, save more money, invest more money. I feel like after we've got a couple of topics that we got to cover, because we're supposed to be talking about the minerals and stuff tomorrow. No, we're supposed to be covering the minerals and stuff next Tuesday. We're supposed to be covering the brokerage this Tuesday. And then the following Tuesday, I'm going to be talking about some more ways where you can supplement an income in addition to your primary source of income. And I'm going to try to cover things that I haven't already covered on the show. That way we can talk about more ways that you guys can find ways to make money for you. I'm going to try to see if I can find some easy light duty ways where you guys can make a little bit more money where you're not actually killing yourself. Maybe find other ways that you can make money off of the computer, or make more passive income where you don't have to strain yourself financially to make it successful. You don't have to exhaust your resources to make it successful, and it doesn't require a large quantity of investment to make it to be successful. And that extra supplemental income will help increase your cash flow so that your debt to income is lower, which allows you to balance your budget better, invest in more things, and ultimately make money for you in the long run. Now, since we're trying to pull all this stuff together in a lineup, and then we also on Wednesdays talk about a different country every week, about places that you can go where you can invest there, you can learn there, you can live there, in addition to the United States. And some places have dual citizenship options where you don't even have to surrender your citizenship from your original country, and you can travel the world investing in things, starting up businesses, and utilize your travel as a business expense if you've created an LLC or a C corporation, where you can then do international travel on an international budget with the profits from your investments, which allows you to travel the world and make money for you, which actually can be beneficial at times, because if you're traveling on a work visa, those work visas give you a longer period of time in a country. Even if you don't need that period of time, it gives you a longer period of time on a country than a tourist visa. So that actually helps you out a little bit with your commuting and the frequency of applying for passports or permits. We also, I know that I did talk about this once before, that we are going to be doing some digging into some of the countries that are going to be having those private trusts, those non-residential private trusts. And there's a specific type of irrevocable trust that is an all-purpose, or not so much an all-purpose, but it's an all-protecting kind of trust, to say the least, that just kind of fits in with that offshore scenario, especially if you set up the trust in a country that doesn't have taxation on that trust. You can move your money around and then send it to that trust, and then that trust can send the profits to the beneficiary, and then the beneficiary doesn't have to pay taxes on anything that's not taxable from the interest level. And it's one of those things where you have to build it in stairs. So the first step is that you have to have a source of income that can be put into the trust, and then you build a private trust that's specifically supposed to be paying the beneficiaries. Then you have any business that you have, and you want to have that trust make the private trust a beneficiary. You want to have the cash flow that you have in a trust where that trust makes the profits into the beneficiary. Then you want to have your vehicles and other tangible items in a holding trust where those items will then have money that goes into, if there's any money that needs to go into that goes into your beneficiary thing. And I just found some nifty information out where you can then lease the vehicles to the business or the business trust, however you want to do that, where the scenario is set up where the cost of maintenance of the vehicles is paid to the trust that's holding the vehicles, where the vehicles get paid off. And that kind of sets you up good, because if something happens where a vehicle gets into a car crash, they'll go after the business that's assigned to the vehicle's interest, even though the trust itself is protected with ownership of the vehicle. So that kind of covers you on a multitude of levels when it comes down to putting your money in a bunch of good places where you're not necessarily paying taxes for too much of anything, if anything at all. And it puts you in a very, very good spot where you're financially successful all the way around. Now, what I like to do is talk to you guys about a plethora of different things, but today we're going to be getting into what's going on with the country. But that's a topic that I said that we're going to be trying to get into coming soon, because eventually we got to at least talk about that particular type of trust. We've got to figure out, because I know that anywhere between $250 and $500 for a simple trust, as much as $10,000 plus maintenance fees for a complex trust, depending on how complex a trust is. And it really depends on how much estate and revenue and resources that you're trying to maneuver, and what complications and strategies you're trying to function into this trust. As you piece this trust together, you can set something up where, again, one of the other things that we were talking about doing is getting life insurance policies, and then having those life insurance policies pay beneficiary capital to the trust, because that also puts you in a good spot. So if you've got a non-residential offshore trust, and then that non-residential offshore trust is a beneficiary trust to a life insurance policy, then when you have a death in the family, that life insurance policy pays that trust in a country that's tax-free, which is beneficial for you. And then that scenario allows that trust to then pay you whatever they're going to pay you to as a beneficiary distribution. But now you've got a residual income coming in on a regular basis that you don't have to figure out how you're going to wake up every day and pay your bills. So this is the goal that we want to set up, like I said before, a 20-year plan that puts you into an area of retirement where you're capable of stopping working at some point. Like the things that you do, you either love what you do, or you learn to love how much money you're making off of what you do, even if you don't really want to do that, because we choose to do what it takes to make money. Some of us try to chase our dreams and do what we love, but sometimes what we love to do doesn't always pay the bills. And eventually, if we don't have people to fall back on to pay our bills, we typically put our position towards making that money to pay the bills, because we don't want to be homeless. So it's a stressful scenario, and I understand it. So that's one of the reasons why we talk about the things that we talk about on a weekly basis. So with that being said, because I know you guys are going to start rolling in, satellite's going to start coming in real soon, Usman's going to start coming in real soon. I know that you guys are dedicated to the cause, and I greatly appreciate the support. So join me as we dive into the chaos, and we're going to see if we can make sense of how Trump's actions are sparking global revolution. Quick side piece, because I didn't put it in this discussion. Quick side piece. We've got about a week and a half left for them to wrap things up, because I think the first is going to be sometime Monday or Tuesday next week, something like that. And the 5th, a few days later. So not this weekend, next weekend is pretty much the end of the extension. And what I've observed in my research is that Beijing has a problem with the algorithm being released to the control of America. China is allowing TikTok to be as a private owned by a private company, ByteDance. China is allowing ByteDance to sell or diverge. Now, Beijing doesn't want intellectual property from Asia to be utilized by other countries. So that is slowing down the sale process. Until Beijing makes a change, it's going to be a difficult scenario for America to have ownership of the country, but not have possession of access to the algorithm. So I'm going to see how this rolls its way up. But come the 5th, if pre-contractual agreements aren't signed, then likely the ban will go back into action. Now, I'm more than sure that since Trump is a last-minute action taker, he's an immediate action taker, but he's a last-minute action taker. He'll give them up until the 5th. And then if some type of last-minute conversation can be done, he may extend the ban for them to sign the contracts, because they do have a verbal agreement in that scenario, hypothetically, because they haven't had a verbal agreement yet. But if they had the verbal agreement by the top of the last hour, then he may extend for them to sign the contracts. But assuming that they're still saying no, then likely within 5 hours of shutdown, he's going to be saying that, TikTok's going back off the air. And for those of you that's been entertained by TikTok, you're just going to have to deal with the fact that you've got Red Flag or whatever the other Red Note. That's what it is. The other Chinese app that is also owned by ByteDance, but doesn't have as large of a following in America. So you got that. With that being said, we're going to be following that and seeing how that goes, because that's going to be a multi-trillion-dollar business deal. Trump has about 5 private investors. Musk is one of them that wanted to be involved in it, owning a portion of TikTok. And once NASDAQ has it accessible for public trade in the US, then anyone who's using TikTok as a personal source of income should be investing in shares in it, so that as the product becomes bigger, you will gain more profit share, the same way Facebook picked up in revenue. But you also have to understand that as times change, platforms like YouTube are still going to be an iconic figure in social media, and it's not likely to phase out as one of the largest social media platforms in the world. But TikTok is one of the most popular short reel platforms in the world. And I want to say 3rd or 4th in line would be Twitter X, where Twitter used to be very popular until it got the name changed, and now not too many people know what it is. But because it's a generational change, when Elon Musk bought it out and changed it to X, I don't know what his infatuation is with X, but the fact is that he's got the X brand, and now Twitter is like third, somewhere between 3rd and 5th in line as the most effective platform to be utilized on social media. But it is more of a political social media standard. So you're probably going to see a lot more individuals today joining the show from Twitter, because we're going to be talking about some financial politics. In today's turbulent political landscape, a surprising phenomenon has emerged. Now, a global revolution sparked by Trump's rhetoric and policies, and it's an enigmatic rise shrouded in uncertainty that has left many grappling with its implications. From the rise of populism to the decline of traditional politics, we're living in a world where the rules are being rewritten daily, and one figure has been at the forefront of this global upheaval: Donald Trump. So I tell you guys every week, love him or hate him, Trump is the president that has ignited a fire that's spreading far beyond America's borders. As we speak, protesters are erupting all over the place. There are movements, and these guys are forming all over the world, where the world is wondering, is this the start of a global revolution? Many people around the world are feeling disillusioned with their governments, economics, and institutions. They're frustrated with the status quo, and this growing discontent has created a fertile ground for populist movements to flourish. So Trump's leadership style, often characterized by polarization and controversy, has inadvertently become a catalyst for these movements. Matter of fact, we've seen a lot of really strange movements that they were out here before during his first campaign, but they're out here in a new way these days. They have had some Nazi Klan guys going around with all black with black masks on, and they have like large quantities of weaponry, and they're standing outside of minority schools and protesting outside of minority schools, which I don't understand the concept of that, but I recognize the behavior. They used to all wear white sheets and have a white flag with a swastika on it. Now they're wearing all black with the same swastika in red, but the swastika's on a black flag now, which I don't understand what the purpose of them switching to black when they're supposed to not like black. I don't understand that. But those types of behaviors are followed by some minority groups that are all out there, that so basically everybody's looking like ninjas right now. And then you have a large quantity of minority militia groups that are banding together with assault rifles, where these protesters once were, taking their children to and from school, and just to keep their kids from being involved in an adult protest. I don't know how that came about from Trump deciding to buy and sell countries and make trades, but these protesters are out here getting crazy. Trump's statement and policies have been met with widespread outrage and further fueling the fires of discontent, like when he passed the laws about abortion and women started shaving their heads and stopped sleeping with their men, which is probably the first time women showed some self-control towards abstinence. But the fact is that there's only 50% of the population is men, 49.1% of the population is men. So in order for Trump to win by 70%, a large majority of people were women that voted for him. So why are the women mad at the men? Because 2/3 of the country voted for the man, and some of those people were women. But they did that. And they're still protesting through the streets because he's not stopping there. We talked about this on a show last week and the week before, where he passed a few laws about transgender behavior, and he's not tolerating the paid sex change. Your genetic birth is your genetic identity. It is not a self-proclaimed identity. It is not how you portray yourself as a behavior pattern. It is the genetic genitalia that determines the gender of the person from his legal standpoint, and they're passing laws to ban any other representation of gender, which is crazy. I'm not going to argue against it. I'm just going to say that a lot of people who started doing it are pissed off. Anybody who's in the process of, from what I understand, it's not going to be negatively impacted. They're going to be allowed to finish the process. But anybody who hasn't started can give up on the idea of following through with that in the United States, because they're outlawing it to the magnitude where they're now not allowing even the veterans benefits to pay for that type of surgery anymore, which would save capital on veterans benefits to go towards more veteran services, since they're rolling back on funding for all of the programs all over the place, which, might I add, in the post office laying off a bunch of people as well. They're calling it buyouts, but they're basically downsizing, which is they're firing a bunch of people that they do not find relevant to the job. And then that is going to save money for the budget, which I would hope they would use to give larger salaries to the people that remain, but I can't really put my finger on that. Because with less people, you're going to have a larger workload. Now, in Europe, the yellow vests are taking to the streets, demanding economic justice. In Latin America, citizens are rising up against authoritarian regimes. And in the Middle East, the Arab Springs unfinished business is still simmering. Whew. It's a powdery keg of discontent just waiting for a spark. Now, I got to tell you, I'm going to be talking about money today. So stay tuned for this, because Trump's leadership style divides a provocation and a apocalyptic process. Unapologetic, might I add. This may be the match that lights the fire that everybody's waiting on, like everything to go to shit. Because, they said that once you elected Donald Trump, that it was going to become World War III. I don't necessarily mean that I don't believe that it's going to be like a figuratively thing, but I do believe that, like, politically, financially, like everything is about to just have to start over for this. A better description of it, it's going to be torn down and rebuilt, because it can't keep going the way it was once going, because it wasn't working the way it was going. I know a lot of people like tradition, and just because it's always been that way doesn't mean that it benefits us today. And change is change. Obama asked for change a long time ago. He was asking for a different type of change. Martin Luther King was asking for change a long time ago. He was asking for the same type of change as Obama was asking for. Malcolm X, Huey P. Newton, there was a lot of people that was asking for change, but change is change, and change is needed. So with the situation that we have right now, where we're about to start replacing humans with robots, change is something that we need to do across the all atmospheres of business and politics. So the anger and sense of betrayal are palpable, transcending geographical and cultural boundaries. In Europe, people are questioning the very foundation of the EU, while in Asia, there's a growing resentment towards the establishment. The sentiment is clear. People want change, and they want it now. So Trump's actions, whether intentionally or not, have become a symbol of defiance against the perceived elite. So Trump's supporters would argue that he's a disruptor, shaking things up, challenging the status quo. But his critics claim that he's destabilizing forces, emboldening extremists, and undermining global stability. Now, when it comes down, and that's one of the reasons why I started talking about the extremists a little while ago. His decisions to set up tariffs and stop funding certain countries, and start building certain things, and stop funding certain programs, and start creating more financially stable programs. None of the decisions that I have heard Donald Trump do since January 20th has ever had anything other than a financial goal towards it. I have not seen anything in my observations that were directly targeting something that an extremist can get behind. But I can see him passing laws and rules and regulations that extremists would be objective to. Whatever your view, it's undeniable that Trump's presidency has become a lightning rod for discontent. So his tweet, his policies, his inflammatory rhetoric have all contributed to a sense of tension and uncertainty. And as that uncertainty grows, so does the anger and the desire for change. So across the globe, people are taking to the streets, demanding reform and accountability from their leaders. The protests, often marked by violence and chaos, are a manifestation of this collective frustration. Trump's speeches, his tweets, and policies have become a rallying cry for many, either in support of or in opposition to his views. So this has created a global encore chamber where we're looking at his rhetoric echoing resistance in a more amplified fashion. So from those yellow vests in France to extradition protests in Hong Kong, the world is witnessing a surge in grassroots movements. So these protests share a common thread, which is a rejection of establishment and a yearning for radical change. Now, Trump's presidency has inadvertently become the focal point, drawing attention to deep-seated issues plaguing societies worldwide, and his actions have created a sense of urgency, prompting people to take a stand and demand for a better future. Now, on March 20th, 2025, President Donald Trump signed an executive order aimed at expanding domestic production of critical minerals, including uranium, copper, potash, and gold. Now, we talked about gold last week when we were talking about our precious metals that you guys can invest in. Now, when Donald Trump does something, money is to be made. So I said that I was going to be talking about the minerals next time around after we finish talking about the brokerages. But before we get there, we got to talk about these, because if he's talking about making something happen, there's money to be made there. So the initiative employs the Defense Production Act, DPA, to prioritize national security and reduce reliance on imports from China with relation to these metals and minerals that we're talking about, which China dominates global mineral processing. Now, the key measures of this executive order are expedition, permitting, federal agencies directing the task to fast track approvals for mining projects on federal lands. Within 10 days, they must compile lists of pending mineral production projects and identify priority projects for immediate action. Several critical minerals are increasing in value due to the growing demand, particularly driven by clean energy technologies and geopolitical factors. So when I start telling y'all there's money to be made, get your pens and paper out, and this is what we're going to dig into. Lithium is a consumption that has rose by 30% in 2024, with demand expected to be more than double by 2030, which is about 5 years from now. And lithium is crucial for battery production in electric vehicles and energy storage systems. Global X Lithium Battery Tech, ETFLIT, they have we have to find the share price that they haven't posted an updated one yet, but their dividend distribution is 13 cents per share, where their ex-dividend date was last December 30th, 2024, where the next payment date was January 7th of 2025. They have a new expected dividend date with 25 cents per share, and that ex-dividend date is June 27th, 2025, with a payment date of July 7th, 2025, which means that soon as we get our hands on the share price of this one, this is a semi-annual distribution. So every 6 months, this one is going to pay out, which is interesting because if you buy in before the ex-dividend date, where the ex-dividend date is June 27th, they're going to pay you July 7th. On July 9th, you can sell and then wait until like November and buy back in and be there right for the ex-dividend date and then sell. You don't necessarily have to throw it there, leave it there for 6 months. You can literally buy in right before the ex-dividend date. Anybody that owns shares on the ex-dividend date gets paid out on the payday. And if you sold a day or two after you got the dividends, you could take your earnings and go and invest it somewhere else for 4 months and move back and do that again. You can actually derive a strategy like this where you are buying into certain shares right before the ex-dividend date, selling those shares right after the ex-dividend date, and then buying into a different share right before the ex-dividend date, and just keep doing that so that over a 7-day period of time, whatever money that you put up onto that particular investment is going to pay you dividends. Now, one of the reasons why I tell you that you've got to do it a few days before is because some platforms put up a 48-hour hold time on your money before you're allowed to make another deal. So if you buy into something today, your money doesn't settle for 48 hours. So you can't buy into something else for another couple days. So if the due date is the 27th and you buy in on, like, say, the 24th, you got 3 days for it to clear, including weekends and holidays. It'll be on the books by the 26th. You're on the record for the 27th. They're going to pay you on the 7th. You sell on the 8th and take your payment with you. And then you go and move on to another investment, holding the next ex-dividend date for that particular investment in mind when the 6-month period rolls back around. This is a way that you can manage enhancing your capital in a more expedited fashion, because when you're putting your money up into a trust and you're doing like a buy and hold, the value of the money is going to give you monthly dividends where you technically don't have to do anything about it, but you could be more proactive about buying and selling as a day trader, which will allow you to buy cash stocks that does give you more back than what you put into it, plus the inflation. Now, one of the things that I've noticed, it's more effective for you to sell the stocks that have risen, not just buy into one, regardless of whether or not it rose or fall, take the dividends and then sell even though it's down. If you buy into it and it's down, you got to leave it alone. But when you're buying into it and it's up in comparison to what you bought into, you can sell it and get the ex dividend, which puts a little bit more money in your pocket. So you always want to take a look at that as you are making your trading strategies. Now, another company is for lithium is Albemarle. How do you put that? How do you pronounce that? Albemarle. Albemarle. Help me out, guys. And this corporation has a ticker of ALB. So if you find that out, it's almost like marble, but it's Albemarle. The share price for this one is $88.78 a share. The dividend distribution on this one is $1.62 per share annually, which is a once per year distribution. Now, uranium is going to be another metal, and the U.S. is taking measures to increase domestic production of uranium, indicating its growing importance and value. So SPROTT, Sprout Uranium Miners ETF URNM, are going to be giving you share prices of $34.55 as of March 17th, which was a few days ago, where the previous dividend distribution was $1.28 per share paid 3 months ago, where they have a dividend yield of 4.8%. Now, the Global Atomic Company, GLO, has a share price of 64 cents for Canadian dollars. They do not have a dividend distribution as of yet that we have a record of. Uranium Royalty, URC, has a share price of $3.55 in Canadian dollars, where they also do not have a dividend distribution set for on the record at this point. Now, there are also nickel, cobalt, and graphite. These minerals saw a demand increase ranging from 8% to 15%. Now, they are essential components in battery technologies, and the rare earth elements have a demand that is growing for these minerals, which are vital for permanent magnets used in wind turbines and electric vehicle motors. Copper, this is a mineral that remains a cornerstone of electricity related technologies and is seeing increased demand due to expansion of electricity networks. Potash is where the U.S. imports 95% of its potash needs, suggesting potential for increased value as domestic production is encouraged. Now, we already know that gold, while not a critical mineral for clean energy, gold continues to be valuable, which in recent times has a major acquisition in the sector, indicating sustained interest. Now, the value of these minerals is further emphasized by increased investment and acquisition activities. For instance, venture capital spending in the sector increased by 30% in 2023, with a focus on battery metals such as lithium, nickel, and cobalt. Additionally, the U.S. government recent executive order to boost the domestic production of critical minerals underscores their increasing strategic and economic value. So, chaired by Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, this council oversees the implementation of mineral production strategies and may expand the list of prioritized minerals. The Interior Department is instructed to prioritize mining activities over other uses of federal lands containing mineral deposits. The U.S. International Development Finance Corporation and Department of Defense will provide loans and investment support for mineral production projects, delegated to the Secretary of Defense to streamline production issues, contracts, and reduce bureaucratic delays for critical materials needed for the national security. The order also signals potential inclusion of coal as a critical material of deemed necessary by Interior Secretary. Now, while we're talking about the Department of Defense and other places putting out loans, you notice how they destroyed the Department of Education. I was telling you guys how they were going to dismantle the loan system, and they did. So, how does that impact you now? In recent times, Trump has said that he is putting the Small Business Administration, SBA, in the forefront of control for SBA loans for students to get student funding. So he's using, instead of using SBA loans or small business loans to start up your business, you now have the opportunity coming soon to acquire SBA loans to go to college. I got to figure out how that's going to work, and we're probably going to have to cover a show on that. But since they did dismantle the Department of Education, how are people going to go to school? Now, I understand that there are certain places like I do believe Harvard was offering free tuition for students that make less than, for families that make less than 200,000 a year, which allows for low income individuals to be able to get in there if they have the grades. But remember that places like Harvard and Yale have always been a highly competitive scenario. So unless you're an honor student coming out of high school, the ability to get an education from Harvard is not as plausible. But because there isn't a funding system that is going to cover all of the lack of student loans that they would have gotten, because once a student gets into college, students have private entities that will offer active students a private loan. The school can take advantage of those private loans, but they can't take advantage of those private loans if the student is not a student in college, because banks and other businesses that offer loans to college students, you have to be an actively enrolled college student to qualify for a loan, a personal loan. So Harvard reducing its requirements to individuals that make under 200,000 a year, which is 75% of Americans, to qualify to come in for a non-tuition based enrollment. That's bringing more people in to really emphasize, like me and Mr. Pibb said almost a year ago today, how education should technically be free. But it has become one of the biggest private businesses in the country next to pharmaceuticals. Because, and then they mainstream the situation because all businesses now require you to have a piece of paper, or at least declare that you have a piece of paper. Because notice, if you get a degree, no business requires you to show the degree itself. Half of them don't even care what school you went to. They might ask you a couple questions about it in the interview, but you don't actually have to show them a copy of your degree with your GPA from your college facility when you're applying for a job. You just got to say, yes, I graduated from college. So what's the difference between buying a degree online, lying and saying that you graduated from a college, and not having to spend 200 grand to go to college, versus having 200, 300, 500 grand worth of debt and then getting the piece of paper, and then they're still going to tell you that you need 5 years of experience to do the job regardless. If you have to get on the job training outside of the paper degree, what is the value of this $500,000 degree? So when places like Harvard say, well, we're going to let you come to school for nothing if you make less than 200 grand a year. Great, because that allows me to get that piece of paper. Now, I still got to work for somebody for free in order to get the years of experience, but at least I don't have to borrow $500,000 so that I can get a piece of paper that's going to allow me to be a manager at a Burger King. Think about that for a minute. Now, why didn't Harvard do that when Obama was in office? I don't know. But, funding is slowing down. Everybody's got to make a change. Additionally, Trump confirmed ongoing negotiations with Ukraine to access rare earth minerals as part of broader resource acquisition efforts. This is going to be one of the reasons why the United States is involved in the ceasefire between Ukraine and other rival nations. Because if they stop blowing each other up, then the U.S. can go over there and grab some minerals. It makes perfect sense. Now, the implementation of tariffs by Trump's administration is having a significant effect on interest rates and loans. The tariffs are causing inflationary pressures, which may force the Federal Reserve to keep interest rates higher for longer. This could delay or prevent interest rate cuts that were previously anticipated, where we were expecting to go to as low as 4.25% by the end of this year. And we were supposed to be seeing declines as low as 5.25% at the first quarter of 2025. And that is not the case as a result of the tariffs. The tariffs have increased economic uncertainty, leading the Federal Reserve to maintain cautious monetary policies. This has resulted in interest rates remaining around 4.3% since December. Now, the tariffs are affecting consumer credit terms, particularly in auto industries. A study found that captive auto lenders, those affiliated directly with the manufacturers, have increased their average interest rate by 26 basis points in response to metal tariffs. Now, I know that y'all are like, well, what the fuck does that mean? Well, the impact of the tariffs on consumer credit is not uniform. Low income borrowers and areas with less lending competition are experiencing more significant effects, meaning that if there's only one lender for this particular company or very few lenders for this particular company, then they're going to be able to tax the bejesus out of you versus an area where they have more lenders than they have borrowers, or if they have a larger quantity of options where you can find somebody at a cheaper price, where their prices can be competitive. Now, economists warn that if tariffs are implemented and maintained, consumers may not see relief from high borrowing costs this year. The tariffs could reshape the asset-based lending industry by affecting the value and liquidity of assets used as collateral, particularly in the manufacturing, retail, and distribution sectors. Now, while President Trump has called for interest rates cuts to ease the economy's transition to tariffs, Fed Chair Jerome Powell has emphasized the unpredictable effects of tariffs and the need for a cautious approach. What that 26 points is going to look like is a 10% increase on interest rates for vehicles. So you're thinking that you're going to get that car for 8 to 10% because you got good credit, and that car is going to be like 26% interest. That's what you're looking at right now. So you want to go and buy you a car that probably came from, one of the countries that's being hit by tariffs, like say, Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, any of the non-American made vehicles, Jettas, anything Volkswagen, and some of the American vehicles that are getting metal from overseas, like Ford and Dodge. They're going to be hitting you with that extra 10% on top. And one of the funny things that you're going to experience is that if you've ever gone to a dealership to try to buy a car, you will notice they don't tell you how much the car costs. Yes, they do have a sticker price on the car of all of the stuff that they're going to charge you for on this vehicle, whether or not it's necessary for the vehicle. Because you've got like $150 for floor mats that you don't need, but there's floor mats on top of carpet, right? You've got like a storage trays and all the stuff in the trunk, like all kinds of nifty, like roadside assistance kits. And when I talk about roadside assistance kits, it's like a box of bandages for like $150 or some stuff like that you don't necessarily need in the car. And they overcharge you because you could go get a pack of floor mats you can get floor mats and a seat cover for $150, because if you go to AutoZone, Advanced Auto Parts, Walmart, you can go buy you a whole set of floor mats for like $20. They're charging you $150 because it has the dealership's logo on it, which is straight crazy. Special shout out to Bayside. He's in there. Special shout out to Cali, California, on the map. Actually, I think California is one of the top 5 countries that we be talking about, showing us a lot of support. And yeah, it is crazy to note that they do these things. Now, what they want to do is they want to have you, the dealership wants to have you get in the car, take it for a test drive so that you can fall in love with the car. You love the way it sounds. You love the way it smells. You love the way it feels. You love the person feeding you this image while they're talking to you about how awesome the car is to convince you to buy it. Fuck that shit. How much does it cost? Now, what they're going to do is they're going to ask, they're never going to answer the question straight out until you start saying, nope, we're not discussing stuff until you tell me the price. What they're going to do is they're going to do the most interesting thing. They're going to ask you, how much are you willing to pay for it as far as a down payment? Do you have a trade-in? What's your monthly payments that you prefer to have for it? You know, that's the stuff that they're going to ask you. You know, how much do you want to pay per month for it? Which means that they're not going to tell you how much the total value of the car is going to be once they finish stacking you in. But the thing is that if you don't look for that, you'll come to find out that they will try their best to fuck you out of the deal. And they'll try to negotiate the situation where let's throw some extra stuff in there, extra warranty packages and stuff to that effect. And we still try to get you into that same interest rate that you're looking for, where you're paying $500 a month for this vehicle for 7 years, where a $20,000-$30,000 vehicle ends up being $50,000-$60,000. And you don't care because all you're looking at is how much money you're paying per month. Now, if we're investing our money wisely, then we can go ahead and get us a cash loan and we could just buy that vehicle cash up front. So if it's a $50,000 vehicle and you throw down 10% on top of it, which shouldn't be, but if you threw down 10% on top of it for taxes, your $55,000 vehicle would be $60,000 or $61,000 out the gate. So you take you out a loan for $62,000. You go to the dealership and try to get them to drop your $55,000 vehicle down to $50,000, because there is a little bit of play between an MSRP and the $2,000 to $5,000 blanket that they put up there for commission for the seller, and that's what the sale price ends up being. So they technically make a $3,000 to $5,000 profit off of every car they sell, no matter how much the car costs. And you could talk that car down from 55 down to 50 or maybe 49. And if you have a trade-in, you might knock it down to 45, whatever the case may be. You're cash up front on the car. I ain't talking money. I'm not test driving it until I buy it, and I'm not talking money until you tell me how much this fucker costs. And I'm taking everything off the car that I don't want before I pay for the car. We're not talking about loans. We're not doing credit checks, background checks, nothing like that until I agree to a price. Then we can start talking about everything else. And typically, like the last time I bought 2 brand new vehicles 6 months apart, and each one of them was like $45,000 a piece. And I can tell you that when you go in there like that, it's like, nope, I want that one. I'm not driving it until I buy it. They don't know how to act because I want that one. I'm not negotiating. You know, I want that one. I'm not driving it until I buy it. It puts them in a compromising position where now we got to talk money out the gate. You walked up and approached me. I didn't approach you. So you're going to tell me how much I got to pay to get that. And we're going to work on it from there. After I pay for it, we can go wherever you want to go. But I'm not taking it nowhere until after I buy it. You know. Now, Bayside said, I recommend you fix up that old car that you've been driving. It's about to get expensive for a new car. Look, real talk. And that's why I left that up there for a little bit, Bayside. Real talk. You don't want to buy a brand new car. You want to buy a certified pre-owned vehicle. You want to buy one of those loaner vehicles that's been on a lot for a little bit, that's got like 3,000 to 10,000 miles on it, because it's going to, the vehicle is going to depreciate itself in value 50% after you drive it off the lot regardless. So instead of getting a 2025 in 2025, you want to get you like a 2022 or 2023. That's got like 3,000 to 5,000 miles on it. Because that one is going to be $10,000 or $20,000 less than the 2025 model. Same vehicle, same color, a lot of times same amenities. And the only thing that you're missing might be the difference between whether or not the model you grabbed has a sunroof or not, or whether or not the model that you have has a convertible top or whatever. And you're right. You should spend more time and more effort on used cars these days, because even with the certified pre-owned vehicles, at least the ones that were pre-tariff, those are going to be cheaper than the newer models that are coming out. But after the tariffs settle in for a while, you would do better buying a 10-year-old car or a 15-year-old car cash up front, $10,000, $15,000 cash up front, and just fix it if it needs fixing. Because outside of the electric cars that actually have a 200,000 mile battery life, where you have to buy another $5,000 or $10,000 battery on the car, and if you're paying $10,000 for an electric battery for an electric car, why not put $10,000 into a gas powered car that you can put that money in piece by piece and fix it as you go along, instead of dropping 10 grand on that bad boy out the gate? Because once the battery goes out, the car don't run no more until you put 10 stacks on it. So you're putting 10 stacks at one time on this electric car. Electric cars is one of the cars you can't buy used. You can, but if the car's battery life is only going to last 200,000 miles, you're going to have higher charge requirements, lower mileage rates per charge, because the fact is that the battery is wearing out over time. The closer you get to the expiration of the battery, the less charge that it holds over a shorter period of time, which means the less mileage you get on the car over a shorter period of time, which also means that you're eventually going to have a $40,000, $50,000 used car that you bought because it's electric, that you're going to have to either trade back in for half the price, or you're going to spend 10 grand on top of that to fix the car. But there are so many gas powered cars right now that are $10,000 brand new, that if you got a used version of that same car that's got like 50 or 70,000 miles on it, you could buy that car for $5,000 to $10,000 out the door, and there is nothing wrong with that car. And some of them, you might have to put $5,000 worth of maintenance into it after you buy the car, but the car will last you another 200, 300, 400,000 miles before you have to service the transmission, maybe change out some gasket seals, some little stuff that allows you to hold on to it. And if you own it, you can park it until you can afford to fix it. You just, if it's in a apartment complex, put a car cover over it. If it's in a HOA style neighborhood, you want to back it up so that they can't see the license plate, back it up to the building. You want to again, put a car cover over it, or put it in the garage if you have a house with a garage in it. If you've got a yard and you don't have a garage, but you've got a backyard, park your car behind the house. And then when you got time, you could pull that bitch from back there. Park it behind the house, put a car cover over it. And then when you get the money to take care of it, you can pull that bastard from behind the house, put it back onto the road. It is yours, and it does not have any value until you put it back on the road. But it doesn't cost you any money while it's not on the road, because you only got to pay for insurance on vehicles that are registered. Any vehicle that is unregistered doesn't exist to the U.S. government, so they don't give a fuck what you do with it as long as you don't drive it on the main streets. So like Bayside said, yeah, you need to take them old beater uppers and take them 1990s models and bring them 90s models back out. Y'all need to start figuring this stuff out, because yeah, this is going to make a huge change for everybody, because just going out there and buying cars is going to be terrible. And that's not the only thing that's going to be affecting y'all, because while tariffs may cause short-term inflation, Powell suggests that their effects could diminish over time. However, the full impact remains uncertain, with complicating Fed decisions is really exacerbating the decision-making process. Now, a study on the impact of the tariffs on consumer credit, particularly in the auto industry, found that captive auto lenders, those affiliated with those manufacturers that, like I said before, that are increasing those tariffs, I said that is going to be a 10% interest rate compared to pre-tariff levels, where the increased interest rates disproportionately affected low-income borrowers and regions with less competitive lender markets, where these groups face higher finance costs due to their limited options and less elastic credit demands. Captive lenders, which are vertically integrated with manufacturers, passed on the increased costs from tariffs through higher loan interest rates rather than vehicle prices alone. So instead of jacking up the price of the car, they're just jacking up the cost of the loan. So they're still taking the expenses of the tariffs and putting it off on the consumer. Now, wealthy individuals, you got to pay the cost to be the boss. They don't give a fuck, because most of them are smart about it. They're not going to buy a brand new car and say, oh, I got a brand new car. They're going to buy, the business is going to buy a brand new car and write off the cost of the car on their taxes. So since they're making enough profits off of their business to be taxed a certain quantity of money, they can now purchase a vehicle that costs 10% more because they get to take that off of their taxes. So it doesn't matter how much the vehicle costs. If they can afford to pay for it cash up front, poor people who have to take their entire income tax refund, last paycheck, and a trade-in just to get into the car, they're going to be the ones that are going to suffer from that. They're going to need a co-signer. Their co-signer is going to need a co-signer. Now you got 3 people responsible for the car note so that the one person can drive off with the car. Shit's crazy. Now, Elon Musk is supposed to be having that robo-taxi that's supposed to come out in Q1 of 2026. I'm going to be following that vehicle to see when it debuts and who will have access to purchase it, because I have not heard that there's a list for it. But what you have to realize is that that vehicle at $30,000, if you were able to buy that vehicle brand new at $30,000, which is probably the cheapest electric car that I've heard of, that is a 100% autonomous vehicle. And that vehicle you can use in different types of rideshare programs if you sign up and everything like that and get the correct insurance policies and this, that, and the third, and you're not in one of those states that prohibits vehicles from not having a driver sit in a driver's seat. And you can have that car go out and make some money for you to kind of make a little bit of money to pay the cost of the car note. Now, again, for those individuals that use Uber, Lyft, and other such rideshare programs to make it a side hustle, you're putting a shit ton of miles on your vehicle in order to pay the cost of your vehicle. But if you can get that $30,000 car and you can drive it for some of the time and let it make money for you some of the other time, then you can make enough money for the car can make enough money to pay for itself, where you got a free car. My personal objection to that particular model is the fact that I'm not the only person in my fucking car. So that means everybody in the world gets to tear up my car. And then when I finally get my car back, it's used. So back to what Bayside said, just go buy you a used one. Now, if you're trying to make money for you, and you're going to invest in a small business loan, create you a rideshare program where you're going to buy 4 of these electric cars. And I would say 4, whatever you got to do it in pairs when it comes to electric vehicles. And the reason why is because if you're going to have a 24/7 business, you need to have half of your product on the road, half of your product at the warehouse, because if the lifespan of the vehicle, say, is 300, 500 miles, where however far the vehicle is going, you want the vehicle to make it back to you before it runs out of power. So if it's got a 300-mile range, you're going to want it to go 200 miles total there and back, with 100 miles left over just in case it burns more power than you calculated, which means that if you're doing 200 miles a day on a vehicle, and that 200 miles a day can be depending on the type of driver you are, can be a 8-hour shift, and you're going to try to run 24-hour shifts, you're going to want to have one car out every 8 hours, bring that car back, send out another car, and you're going to keep doing that all night long, 24/7. Which means that if you've got one car out on the road, or if you're going to do it twice a day, where you're going to have one car out, 2 cars out in the morning and 2 cars out in the afternoon, and run a 16-hour setup, you're looking at $120,000 worth of cars, and you're going to have to make not 120. You're going to have to make probably closer to $30,000 or $30,000 to $60,000 a year off of those 4 cars for those cars to pay for themselves. But you can start up a business doing that, where all you really have to do is fix the cars when they break, charge them up when they get back to the warehouse, send them back out, and really micromanage the customers requesting the car. Once you figure out how to set all that stuff up where the customers can request a car and the car will take them from place to place to place, that's when you can sit at home and all of your electric cars can make money for you. But that's one of those situations that happens after you guys can afford to buy something. Now, the strategy of the companies charging you guys all of this extra money for cars allows them to offset production costs, which has increased the cost by 25% tariffs on steel and 10% tariffs on aluminum. Now, non-captive lenders, such as independent financial institutions, were not directly exposed to the tariffs and did not raise interest rates significantly. So this provided a natural counterfactual for measuring the impact of tariffs on captive lenders. So the funding suggested that focusing solely on product price increases underestimates the full economic impact of tariffs. Now, financing terms such as loan interest rates are another channel through which consumers bear the cost of the trade policies. This research underscores how trade policies like tariffs can indirectly affect consumers' financing, adding to the overall burden on the buyers beyond just higher product pricing. The implementation of tariffs has had several significant effects on real estate loans. This is another thing. Now, this is a good place to invest, but now it's going to cost more money to buy the materials to fix the place. It's going to cost more money to finance the place, which is going to make it harder for sellers to sell the place, which is going to slow down the productivity of real estate, which is one of the reasons why we haven't seen a massive increase in real estate. And that's also one of the reasons why some of the real estate investment trusts have been on a bit of a decline here in March. Now, tariffs are contributing to inflationary pressures, which may force the Federal Reserve to keep their interest rates as high as the 4.3%, which forces us to have loan rates of 7 to 8% till probably late 2025 in Q4, or potentially start seeing improvements in Q1 of 2026. So let me say that again, because I believe I said 24, but it's supposed to be Q4 of 2025 or Q1 of 2026. We will start seeing it start going down to like 5% or lower, which is not what we were hoping for, because we were hoping that it was going to be at like 4% by summertime this year, and it's going to be like 7 or 8% at summertime this year. So this is causing mortgage rates to remain elevated, with an average 30-year fixed mortgage at around 6.64%, where tariffs on materials like steel and aluminum are driving up the construction cost, where this increases building costs by $7,500 to $10,000 per house. And you already know that they're going to charge way more for the house. So this is the part that's going to suck. So if it used to cost $50,000 to rehab a house, you would buy the house for $150,000. You would rehab the house for $50,000. You would sell the house for $50,000 more than that, where you would be able to pay off your real estate agent, your broker, and any lenders, and still have $10,000 or $20,000 in your pocket. That $150,000 house that you bought, that you used to be able to sell for $250,000, there's going to be an extra $10,000 worth of repair cost on the house. So now your $150,000 house that you bought, you're now going to have to sell it at a $260,000 or $270,000 to offset the $10,000 increase on repairs, which means that and some people are thinking, oh, that's not a lot of money. Well, two-bedroom houses used to be about $250,000. Right now, you're probably going to start seeing two-bedroom houses starting to range between $350,000 and $400,000. Special shout out to Satellite. Mr. Satellite is back in the house. So when we see Satellite, you know we gotta come back and hit Satellite with some intro music. So Satellite is Mr. Satellite's in the house.
Walking through the noise, cut through the static. My standards are no suggestions, they're automatic. No compromising, no time for the average game. Elevating myself, that's my only aim. This is
so Mr. Satellite's in the house. But what we're looking at is that those 2-bedroom houses that used to be a $250,000 are now going to be costing between $300,000 and $400,000 for those 2-bedroom houses. And since the cost of the house is going to start costing more, you're starting to look at individuals not only paying an extra $10,000 or $20,000 for the house, they're also paying extra 10% on the mortgage. That's the totality of how much it sucks. So the house, what used to be sold at $250,000 would now be sold at like $275,000 at best. You used to get a cheaper loan on that bad boy where you could be able to get it at like 4 or 5%. Now you're paying 10% more overall for other stuff. And that's going to stretch out over the course of the financing of the house. And now you're looking at like some lenders actually pushing the envelope and hitting you at like 7 or 8% in some situations, where that $275,000 house that used to be $250,000 is now going to cost you like $425,000 after you finish paying off the loan over the course of 30 years. And this is going to lead to higher home prices, or you're going to be building smaller homes where instead of getting a 2,000 or 3,000 square foot house, you're going to probably be getting like a 1,500 square foot house, because either the developer is not going to develop as large of a house to keep from being outside of the market budget, or they're going to be increasing the cost of the average budget house. Now, as construction costs rise and interest rates remain high, overall housing affordability is decreasing. Rent is starting to go up across the board as if it wasn't already getting high. And this may lead to a slowdown in new home construction and sales, affecting demand for real estate loans. With higher costs and potentially lower demands, lenders may become more cautious. Being more cautious, they're going to be asking for higher credit scores. They're going to be asking for more money down. They're going to be having larger monthly payouts. It's going to be terrible. Now, this can result in stricter lending criteria and potentially higher, as I said before, down payment requirements for the real estate loans. The higher interest rates and rising insurance premiums, especially after California burned to the ground, are squeezing profit margins for real estate investors and developers. Now, this may lead to a slowdown in deal making and capital deployment within the sector. And that's reckless, to say the least. Speaking of reckless, Canada is hitting U.S. residents with, I do believe, a 20 or 25% tariff on electricity. So as we talked about that last week, you guys are going to start seeing that extra $7 or $9 a month per kilowatt hour on your electric bill. So your electric bill is going to start being higher if you're in the impacted states, where I think it's like Minnesota, New York, and like one other state that is impacted by Canada. It's the northern states that pretty much are really close to the border of Canada, if not touching the border of Canada, that are benefiting from reduced power costs from Canada. They're going to be experiencing close to a $10 increase on their light bill every month. But if you are in one of those states and you can afford to stay in that state, because those states aren't cheap, you're probably got the kind of job that's going to be able to cover the cost of that electricity, or you're just going to turn a lot of stuff off and start burning some damn candles. Because I'm going to be real with you. I had one of those everybody hate Chris lifestyles growing up, and I can tell you hands down that like $20 worth of candles will last you 30 days. If you get them hurricane candles, those big, gigantic hurricane candles, and you only light them when it's dark, you don't just leave them burning all day, every day. You just light it right after sunset and blow it out when you take your behind the bed. Them hurricane candles will light the whole house up for 30 days. So if they're going to charge you an extra $10 per kilowatt hour, which might make your light bill go up $30 or $40 a month, you could spend $30 or $40 on some fucking candles and turn all the lights off and just not have a light bill where you'll save you some damn money. Now, offset, if you got to pay extra money wisely. Offset, or do like I was saying before, start investing in solar, because you don't have to buy a massive solar panel system. All you have to do really is get you any type of solar power scenario where you can, like, for example, they have this one company out there. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but they sell portable solar generators. And the generator can power a room for a few days. Now, if you get like 3 or 4 of them bad boys, you can plug your refrigerator up to it, and that'll save you some power. You can probably connect, if you, like I said, remember I always told you, when you're dealing with the fact that you got to charge something while using something, you can buy twice as many as you're going to use, and then use half of the set, and then at about 10 or 15%, change stuff out, use the other half while charging the first half, and you'll save power. Now, it's work because you'll be rotating out charging systems. But if you have a charging system that lasts you 2-3 days, and every day you're gonna every morning change out the thing that's charging the fridge, you actually have a benefit because you don't have to deal with power surges because nothing's plugged up to the main grid, because everything's plugged into that thing. But you also have the fact that you can simply put solar panels connected to the house somewhere on the brightest parts of the house and have the line run down to your generator and charge the generator back up, and then plug your generator in certain areas of the house that you want to use it in. You can, matter of fact, have one generator per person, where each person takes their generator into that room and plug stuff up to that generator and use it until the generator dies. If you got 2 generators per person, you're charging one and using the other one, where you're not even using the main grid. You're just, each person, whatever room we're in, we're just going to plug everything up to that generator until it's dead, and then unplug stuff and plug stuff up to the other generator until it's dead, and just rotate stuff out. And you'll be able to bypass the increase from the tariffs from Canada. You just got to pay the cost to maneuver around that. Now, the impact of tariffs on real estate loans may vary by the region, with areas prone to natural disasters experiencing more pronounced effects due to higher insurance premiums. Some investors may find opportunities in a deregulated environment, which could accelerate construction timelines. This might create demands for more flexible loan products that accommodate quicker drawdown schedules. Overall, where the tariffs are creating more challenging environments for real estate loans with higher costs, reduced affordability, and potential shifts in lending practices across the industry. Now, one of the things that you're going to find yourself in an effective scenario when, let's say, because we said before that there are other opportunities out there for lending, or not just lending, for investing. Let's say that you had $500,000 or $750,000 or whatever, and that money was sitting there, and you drew up a contract with a individual to finance their house for them, where a bank or other traditional lender wouldn't be able to finance them. You get the deed, and they've got to pay you for the house to get the deed from you. And you could do a deed trust contract where the contract setup is that they're renting to own the house from you. This is a good way to go in real estate, because if they default on the contract, that breach of contract forfeits the house and you keep the house after they pay for it. And then you can either put it back up for sale or use it as rental property. But if they maintain possession of the house and they stay on time with their payments, you're looking at being able to pick up a house for an at-risk lender or borrower, and then finance the house to them for an inflated price, where over the course of 30 years or so, they would have to pay you more than what they would have paid a mortgage company. So say the mortgage companies are doing 6 and 7%, you could do 10 or 12% and then give them smaller monthly payments with that 10 or 12% and just have them pay you until it's over, right? And you can even extend it, but you gotta check what the laws are about contracts with loans. But basically, as long as there are no limitations as to how long the contract is for, if you're charging them above market average for a loan rate for the cash loan, because you're not mortgaging the house, you're giving them a cash loan, and the house is collateral towards the cash loan, and they're paying you back on the cash loan, you keep the house until they pay off the cash loan. Now, if you're doing it this way, the laws are different for a cash loan than it is for a mortgage loan. But the cash loan, it's your house until they pay off the cash loan. Now, long story short, you could turn a profit off of that. Even if you did 2 points over what the average mortgage place is doing, you could turn a profit off of that. You could even go so far as to offer lower interest rates than the market average and have a longer loan period where they're paying less money per month, which makes it more affordable for them. And you're going to make more money over time, because you're going to make more money off of a 2.5% interest rate over the course of 40 or 50 years than what you would off of a 6 or 7% loan over the course of 30 years. So while markets are doing 6 and 7% interest rates on properties right now for fixed 30 years, if you had a company that was willing to hit that 4% or 4.5% interest rate, that would sound very attractive in the current market. And your 4.5% interest rate for 40 years would put more money in your pocket than the 7% in 30 years, where they would essentially, instead of paying $2,000, $2,500 a month for the house, they would be paying you like $1,000 a month for the house for the next 40 years. You set up the contract, and as long as they pay, and again, make it a flexible contract that's beneficial to you. They got to pay their pay, and then they've got to pay any interest rates or any late payments. You can give them even more opportunities to catch up on a default payment by having other contingencies that keeps them paying you more money for access to the property. There is no difference between that and renting the property out, except the fact that once they reach the final destination of the total amount of the house, you give them the deed to the house. But the entire time that they're still trying to pay off this house, you're making a bunch of money off the property. And since you invested in the property, any money that you get from them on the property goes against the money that you invested in the property, pays off the debt. So it's not a profit until you make back more off of the property that you put your money on than what you paid for it. And if you're taking profits from the first house that you do this with, and you use that to go and invest in another house, you can actually build a off-brand mortgage company that most people would not be able to compete with, because you are offering interest rates that are below market average, where you will give people the opportunity to finance because you're going to get that money. You just got to double check the regulations and laws and rules around it. Now, since the mortgage rates have been hovering around the 6 to 7% range for some time, with experts predicting that they may decrease slightly by the end of 2025, the Mortgage Bankers Association forecast rates could end in 2025 is 6.5% and decreased to 6.4% in 2026, where it was much lower than that last year. Now, Fannie Mae expects the average rate to be 6.5% in the first quarter of this year, and they're also going to see by second quarter of this year it being 6.4%. As the world increasingly interconnected experience of the real estate market, you'll be able to notice that it's no surprise that the global movements are springing up in response to Trump's actions. I got to tell you, it's been crazy. Now, from the women's marches to the climate strikes, people are mobilizing around shared causes and shared values. And these movements are diverse, decentralized, and driven by a sense of frustration and urgency. And they are not just limited to the streets, they're also influencing policy, shaping public opinion, and forcing politicians to take notice. Now, one of the most significant examples of inspired activism was Trump when the rise of the anti-globalization movement occurred, from protests against the G7 to demonstrations against trade deals. People are pushing back against the perceived injustice of globalization. Now they're questioning the neoliberal census, demanding fair trade policies, and rejecting the notion that economic growth must come at the expense of social justice. We have not seen much social justice in America since we keep getting our ass kicked by the police at a traffic stop. We would love to know what social justice feels like, but we do agree to the magnitude that we need some more fair trade practices, which is one of the reasons why Donald Trump has done a reciprocation tariff on all countries that are applying tariffs to the United States. So if you were taxing the United States 25, 50, 75, 100%, we're going to match that come April 2nd and tariff that country with whatever they're tariffing us, which ideally eliminates the cost of tariff. Now, this is the funny thing about what he did with that particular bill. If you stop taxing the U.S., since it's a reciprocatory, how do you pronounce that? A reciprocating tariff. If you are taxing the U.S. $0, then the U.S. will tax you $0. If you are taxing the U.S. 70%, then the U.S. will tax you 70%. So all it takes is for other countries to stop taxing the U.S. for import-export, and the U.S. will stop taxing those countries for the same import-export, which means that inflation will start to decrease for import-export as far as the low-income consumer is being impacted. But until that happens, and then because ByteDance is directly related to the tariffs on China, until U.S. owns TikTok or 50% of TikTok, you're not likely to see that 25% tariff come off of China anytime soon. Now, the movement that's been building for years, since at least as far back as 2017, we've been seeing all kinds of radical stuff happening since Trump's first presidency. And this has given a new lease of life to a new sense of urgency. So when you take the migrant caravan crisis, for instance, when Trump tweeted about the invasion of the U.S.-Mexican border, it sparked a global outcry and a surge in solidarity protests. Suddenly, the plight of Central American migrants became a rallying cry for progressive movements around the world. It was no longer just a local issue. It was a symbol of resistance against Trump's decisive rhetoric and his administrative hardline policies. You can also take a look at the climate crisis. When Trump announced the U.S. withdrawing from Paris agreements, it was seen as a catastrophic blow to global efforts to combat climate change, especially when Trump got pulled the government out of the WHO program, and people stopped getting COVID vaccinations all over the world because the US was paying for everybody to get COVID. These things changed the dynamic on a massive scale where things aren't what you expected it to be, and nobody knows what to do about it. Now, one of the things that I found that was interesting is that he did change the expectations where they were going to invest in the companies that were creating the vaccinations, where they're going to turn a profit off of the distribution of the vaccinations. But instead of funding it where they're buying it from the manufacturer and giving it to the people, instead they're investing in the company where when the people buy it from the manufacturer, the government makes money off of it. It makes sense. But it also galvanized the environmental movement, inspiring a new wave of activism and prompting governments to recommend their climate goals. You ended up seeing the hashtag Fridays for Future was born, and Greta Thunberg became a global icon, all in response to Trump's decision. Now, of course, one of the most iconic and infamous moments of Trump's presidency so far this year was his COVFEFE tweet. It was meant to be a rallying cry for his supporters, but it was redirected, would be the most way to put it, to become a global meme symbolizing the absurdity and chaos of his presidency. For many, it marked a turning point and the moment when Trump's presidency ceased to be a serious political project and became a global spectacle. Now, one pivotal moment that stands out more than that is Trump's announcement to withdraw from the Paris climate situation, and that outrage was something that caused a huge crisis with people worrying about the planet's future. Now, I didn't have a problem with the planet's future. We're going to destroy the planet the way we destroyed Mars. I don't really believe that because, like, for example, when you think about the individuals that are buying electric cars, talking about, oh, we're going green, it takes 20 years of pollution to make an electric battery. So you were just pre-destroying the environment before you build the car. Then you build the car, and you got to remember that you're utilizing, in some scenarios, fossil fuels to generate the electricity that is making the power for the car, outside of renewable resources like wind turbines and water mills and other such that are also creating electrical sources for the car. So it's not like making an electric car is saving the resources for the economy or saving the resources for the planet. It takes 20 years of pollution to make the electric battery. A gas-powered car only pollutes the environment while it is being used. An electric car pre-pollutes the environment before it's created. So in order for an electric car to save you money, you have to own it for 20 years without crashing it. In order for it to save the environment, you have to use it for 25 years without crashing it. And you have to not replace the battery inside of that 25 years, which means you're not driving 200,000 miles in 25 years. Yeah, that's crazy. So for those individuals that are spending an extra $20,000 for a electric car, special shout out to Ruderus at the end game. Let's go. Oh yeah, he's about to kick my behind. I tell you what, I made a couple moves and I was like, I wonder if he's gonna catch this. We're gonna see. But I think he's gonna smack me up on this round. We're gonna get a rematch in there as soon as we finish this one. But definitely he put the hurt without a queen, no less. So he's good. He's really good. He's really good at what he does. But like we were saying, So the cars that you're paying $20,000 extra for, because a gas powered car can go between $15,000 and $30,000 for the average vehicle, and an electric car can go for as low as $25,000 to as high as $75,000 for the regular vehicles, not the luxury models. That extra $20,000, you would have to, like I said, own a car for over 20 years to make a profit off of it, because with the electric car, you're going to save money on maintenance, but you're only going to save about $15,000 a year on fuel, minus the cost that you're going to spend on electricity, because your electric bill is going to go up while your gas bill will go down. Now, he said, yeah, you made some real good moves in the middle. Well, I some days I'm paying attention to it, and some days I'm trying not to miss out on the timeline, and I'm like, but I gotta. It's a Suicide Squad scenario, so as I told you before, I always play the tie, so it's reckless. Overly aggressive behavior will lead you in a catastrophic position, because I could care less about winning. Which becomes very challenging for you, because if a stalemate is the goal, you're not able to make the same type of moves as you would make for somebody who's afraid to lose their pieces. Because you could push me into a corner and cause me to lose a piece, as opposed to a scenario where if you push in the right way, I will let you have that piece, because I wasn't caring about that piece in the first place. I was aiming for something else. It's a fun way for me to play, I can tell you that, because I learn different strategies and I find other ways, and then I see what other people's dependency levels are, because I left ways for me to have an escape route. I'm just waiting to see what happens next. I noticed that you can actually predict certain moves, and you can set it up where if in the event they make certain moves, that you'll make certain moves. I noticed that, and I was like, oh snap. So I could like set up like 3 or 4 different moves real quick, and then like play into it. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, like we were saying about with the thing, you save like $15,000 a year on gas, minus the cost that you spend on electricity. You're still going to have to pay for tires. You're still going to have to pay for rotors. Your brakes are probably going to cost more money, because if you got the regen system, you got a whole different type of service for your regeneration brakes. So all of that stuff is different. And then you don't really save much after that. So again, to offset that extra $20,000, you got to own the car for like 25 years, which is crazy, because nobody usually keeps their car for 10 years. Most people buy their car. If they keep their car for 5 years, that's like a blessing. Typically, inside of 10 years, your car gets crashed, which is one of the reasons why most dealerships are offering a 3 to 5 year warranty on the car, because most people don't keep their car after 3 years. They typically trade it back in, which also means that you probably would benefit from, instead of buying the car, you could just lease that bad boy, which eliminates your ability to do what you got to do in the first place. So if you lease it, you're good. And then once you lease the vehicle for a number of years, you can trade it in and lease another one, because if you're going to be paying for, if you're going to finance a vehicle that you technically own for 3 years or 5 years, and you're going to trade it in to keep from having to deal with the expensive repairs after a certain quantity of mileage before the vehicle ends its warranty, you might as well just do a 2-year lease contract and just lease the fucker and have all of the maintenance done on the vehicle, and you're just paying that $500 a month as a standard fee. Now, me personally, I think that that's wasteful. I personally would just like base I said, buy a vehicle cash up front and use that, and then if necessary, sell it and buy something else. But I would buy that and I'd ride that around. My primary would be something that I own. That way, if it gets crashed, I don't care, because my secondary might be a brand new vehicle or a certified pre-owned vehicle that has far less miles on it. So what you see with the wealthy is most of the time that they own one vehicle and then they lease and finance all the rest of them and rotate those vehicles out, where the ones that they don't own, they might use more than the ones that they do own to maintain the value of the one that they do own, because they're giving back the ones that they lease. Rental car companies is a good thing to do too. So you use the car that you own for inner city driving, and then you use the car that you rent from a rental car company or a peer-to-peer rental system, where when you're doing cross-country driving and out-of-town driving, where you're putting a shit ton of miles on a vehicle, you want to borrow somebody else's car to do that shit. Instead of fucking up your car for that long-distance road trip, you want to fuck up somebody else's car for that long-distance road trip, where your car still look young, still feel young, because when people fuck shit up, your baby is still in the garage at the house. You feel me? That makes way more sense, you know. Likewise, it also makes more sense because now that we know that your assets, your vehicles can be put into a trust, a holding trust for the vehicles themselves, and then you can lease the vehicle that you own to the LLC that you own, where you as a employee of the LLC can utilize the vehicle. If you're going to buy it, you buy it cash up front, where you don't have to worry about missing payments on the finance. Then you can lease it to your company that's making money to pay yourself for the car, which covers the maintenance and everything like that on the car. But then you've got capital somewhere where you can use that capital to use a cash loan to go and buy another vehicle. Because if you're paying $28,000 worth of taxes on $100,000 worth of income that was generated, you can buy a $28,000 car in cash and just write it off on your taxes for the business for a 100% tax deduction on the first year, as long as you buy it before the end of Q4 of the current fiscal year. So think about how much money that you made this year. Look at how much money you got sitting on the side. And you got $28,000 off of your $100,000 that you haven't spent yet. And you know that you got to get that money to Uncle Sam. Go buy you another car. That's it. That's it. But you buy it cash up front. And then you park that bad boy. Now, another thing that you can do, you can start up your own rideshare business when you're doing that. Because if you own a bunch of cars, and you set like the yellow cab companies and Ubers and Lyfts and stuff like, you got people who will drive for you. They'll take minimum wage. They ain't got no car, but they got a driver's license. They will drive for you if you gave them a car to drive. You could pay them less because it's not their stuff. Cover the insurance, cover the car, and in some situations, cover the gas. They get what they get to make sure that the car brings you money. You turn a profit off of that situation. And all of them vehicles are turning over profits for you. There are some people, what's it called? Trader X, I think is what it's called, where these people they buy a bunch of cars. They put their cars up for rent, and people will rent the car as a day renter, a daily renter, just like Enterprise, just like Hertz. They just put their cars up there, and it's random cars that is not readily seen at Enterprise, where you might find a luxury convertible car, you might find a Tesla, and these cars aren't even at the regular rate. These bad boys are like $300 a day, stuff to that effect, because these are some really nice cars. And the fact that you own all of these cars, you're not using none of these cars. You're leasing the cars to the business. The business is renting the cars out to people. The business is making profits off of the car. The business takes those profits and signs it off to a trust that's going to do a Schedule K. So the business has no taxes because they gave all the money to the trust. The trust takes the money and pays for any expenses on the vehicles, and then takes the money and moves the other money to another trust. That trust moves it to another trust. That trust pays you a paycheck. You just made tax-free income. This is like a scenario that is legal ways to bypass the requirement to pay taxes. And we never thought about that till I started talking about it on the podcast. I started talking about it on the podcast. Now you see like 8 different Twitter podcasters or TikTok people that are out there talking about the exact same stuff. I'm like, where the fuck were you guys when I was talking about this like 5 months ago? Now they're up there talking about the same stuff. What was his name? Jordan. He was supposed to be coming onto the show. I gotta see where his head's at right now, because I'm coming out with some detailed stuff. He's only got like 3 minutes worth of information. I'm waiting to see if he's going to come on to the show and share some shit with me. But I think he thought that we were going to do like an instant short where he was going to throw down on 3 to 5 items, and I would throw down on 3 to 5 items, and then do like a little 3-minute reel between the two of us, or do like a side-by-side kind of thing where he's talking about some ways to invest and I'm talking about some ways to invest, and do like a little short video. When I told him that I'm on a podcast for like an hour at least, sometimes 3 to 5 hours talking about money, he's like, I'll get back to you. I'm like, well, shit, I guess you don't have as much advice as I thought. I thought that I've seen a couple of shorts, and I thought that you had a lot of knowledge that you were going to be throwing down on a thing. And I wanted some more knowledgeable people to get in here and share knowledge, because I could sit here for 5 hours talking about ways to make money, invest money, and trade money. But he's doing like 3-minute shorts, and he'll put up a different video every day or every other day. But it's a 1 to 3 minute video talking about things to invest in. Now, granted, it's a fantastic way to build traffic on your channel, and it's a fantastic way, if TikTok doesn't get kicked off, for you to make money for you. But the fact is that if you're just doing it for the views, you don't really have enough knowledge to back up a lifetime of telling people how to make themselves financially successful. But then when you come from a situation where it's like, well, I got you. I got you full force. I'm answering questions that ain't nobody even think to ask. And then when you join the membership, you got all the details inside the membership of any of the core questions that people have asked on the show. So I said, well, if he shows up, he shows up. But I told you guys that I was going to keep you updated about it. I still give him much props, because he is putting up facts. He is putting up knowledge. But I think I scared him when I told him that I'm talking about money for 2-3 hours a day. At least an hour is what I said. I told him at least an hour. The trust game is crazy to avoid taxes. And look, that's why I told you guys. So I've been talking about, first I talked to you guys about a long time ago. And when y'all jump on and y'all go back to those older ones, y'all like, damn, he spent the 2 hours talking about this one topic. And now you're listening to all the stuff that I'm talking about in different segments, and I'm piling it all together. And it's like, look, you got to go back to the show where I talked about building an LLC, build your C corporation. I told you to get both, because if you got a C corporation, that's an LLC. I get it. Look, that's what you're saying. You're saying we need a lesson on LLC. I did it already. I did a lesson for LLCs, telling you about the pluses and minuses of the LLC and how you can use the business tax deductions on your personal W-2 income as tax deductions. And then the C corporations, if you build a C corporation in addition to that, you can get other tax deductions on a C corporation that you can't get from an LLC, such as the 10% that you can donate to a charity, where you can take 10% of your profits and donate it to a charity. I also told you guys that if you create a 501c3 charity where you are doing public services as a nonprofit organization, and it is publicly funded, that any money donated to that charity is tax deductible. You can be a board member of a charity and be the owner of a business. The business can be a board member of the charity, and you can be a board member of the business. So your LLC and your C corporation can be board members of your nonprofit, and you can be a board member of your nonprofit and be a board member of all of those other companies at the same time. You can generate an income as a board member, because usually a nonprofit has as many as 10 board members, and those 10 board members can split 5% of the money donated to the charity as an income for individuals that are doing the charity 40 hours a week or longer. So you can generate an income off of doing charitable actions. But here's the thing. If you're a W-2 worker and you've got an LLC on the side, that does make some money, and you've got a C corporation on the side that also can make some money, you all the money they're taking out of your W-2 check, they're going to give it back to you as deductions for your businesses that you're operating. You can take 10% of your money, donate it to the charity. Then when you do stuff for people from your charity account, you're doing favors for folks. That is taxable or tax deductible actions. Anything as far as feeding homeless people, feeding hungry people, clothing people who don't have clothes, paying for transportation or something to that effect. If you're doing emergency funding for individuals that are trying to pay their lights, water, stuff to that effect, if you're doing community garden plans and everything like that, that would help build the community. Any at-risk community need, such as rent assistance, utility assistance, redevelopment assistance, community beautification programs and projects. All of those things are qualifiable for a nonprofit to do. That not only do they make grants and give them to you for doing that, it is considered a charity when you're doing this from an entity that has an LLC registered as a charity. So you could take 10% of the money that you would have gave Uncle Sam or Donald Trump, you could put it into a different bank account, write yourself a voucher, and then send that to the IRS and say, hey, I gave the charity that is not linked to the business, that is not linked to the other business, that is not linked to you, money. Then you go and do stuff around the place, and it's legit. It is 100% legit. And the fact of the matter is that if you've got records of all the money that you spent under this charity, you can then go to grants.gov and apply for financial compensation, or not compensation. It's allocated grant money for certain stuff. But a lot of the grant money is real estate development for homeless people, veterans, domestic violence relief places for battered women and children, halfway houses for kids that are coming out of the orphanages that don't have a place to go as young adults. And all of it is real estate based, where you can have a joint venture with a nonprofit that will build the thing, and then the for-profit that will rent it out. So if you have a LLC that is a real estate investment platform, and a C corp, a nonprofit that is going to go and do a joint venture with it, that's going to deal with at-risk communities, and then you have a C corporation holding company that's going to hold the asset, there you go. And that's yet another strategy. Because notice, Donald Trump's got a bunch of businesses, but he also has a charity. Because if you remember, when he was being sued by all of those people, he was taking funds from the charity and he was paying off his settlements for his lawsuits. Legitimate scenarios where you can move money around and not have to deal with the taxation of the U.S. government. And that was just some stuff. And I told you guys, these are things that we sit here and lecture on the show for months and years ago that is still relevant today, where if you start piecing all this information that I'm giving you together, you can build your own operation. Nothing is free in this world right now, because back in the day when they were giving away tax identification numbers for businesses, now they're charging, I think, $300 per tax identification number. So you got to be serious about this shit. But once you get yourself a tax identification number, you should never go anywhere and establish a account with any company using your social security number. So you go to rent a wheel, put your business tax identification number down. Don't put yours. Put the business tax identification number down. You got a phone company, put your business tax identification number down. Utility companies, register all the utilities to the business. Now, why do you do that? Well, one, you can either build business credit, or if you're in one of them situations where shit tanks like Donald Trump and you have to liquidate that business, you can get you another tax identification number, and anything on that tax identification number is not on your personal credit score. Any loans, any charged off accounts that are on that tax identification number has nothing to do with your personal social security number, unless you are getting lines of credit where your personal social security number is a guarantor, where if the receiver of the loan, if the borrower defaults, the guarantor has to pay. It's on the guarantor's credit report. outside of that scenario, if you set up standalone, the business is responsible for it. And if I liquidate the business, the debt gets liquidated with the business, start up another business for $300, but I still have a 750 credit score. You can continue to rock the show because your credit score is not impacted by the things that you do. Now, granted, if you start putting all your utility bills and everything like that under tax identification numbers, the downside to that is, because there's a plus and a minus for everything, the downside to that is that if you're trying to get government subsidies for low-income housing or disaster relief situations where homeowners and renters will receive free services from the government, you have to show that your personal name is on those utility bills, but because your business is registered to it, you won't get that benefit. But that's a sacrifice that you would make to say that you got a clean credit score because nothing is running through your Social Security number. It is all running through one of any number of tax identification numbers that you hold to your name. There's another thing. Nonprofits are nonprofits as long as about 34 or 35% of the money that is made by the nonprofit is given to the nonprofit, which means that anything less than that is taxable income. So if you got 20% donated, 80% made as earned income, that's a taxable event, which means that even with a 501c3, you would have to file a 990N or a 990 tax form, where a 990 postcard, which is the 990N, you just file it and say, yep, I'm still a nonprofit, still doing business as a nonprofit, and you don't pay a fee. But the regular 990, you pay $400 to show them your itemized scenario. This only happens when when you're making more than $150,000 worth of donations in a calendar year, basically. Short story. Now, if you're doing business where you're making more money than you're making donations, you still got to file taxes under that tax identification number. But now, especially if you ride it as a C corporation 501c3, that C corporation 501c3 gets all of the benefits that a C corporation would get. Which one of the benefits of a C corporation is that it has a cap of 20% taxation, which is different from the LLC. Well, the LLC has 35%. So there's a lot of stuff that we talk about on the show, and you just got to go back and watch a lot of those other episodes. But I said, once we finish putting all that stuff together, then we start talking about these trusts. Once you find the right country that you can create that trust in, the first trust that gets money and pays you, that's a country that's a tax-free trust where the profits that go into that trust is not taxed, and the money that comes from that trust that comes to you is not taxed. And as long as the money that you're getting from that trust does not qualify as taxable income, it is not required to be claimed on your tax returns when you are reporting your income to the U.S. government. Now, once you build that particular trust, that is the one that directly goes to you. Now you're building all of the other trust around that trust, where all of the money that comes from those trusts goes into the trust that puts money into your pocket. Now you don't got to worry about paying taxes on none of the money that you get. You can put somebody else in place as a trustee, and then you can just go on autopilot. If you set up a business that runs itself, where the employees are making the money for you, they're making a profit because they're making money for you. Now you've got a business running over here by itself. You got a business running over here by itself. You've got investments running over here by itself. You've got a broker that's moving the money around for you. They're getting a cut for that. The trustee is moving the money around for you. They're getting a cut for that. The cost of paying these employees is going to come out of the expenses of the trust, which is offset by the profits of the trust, which means that you don't got to pay taxes for the trust. If the trust owes taxes, the trustee is going to do the taxes for the trust. You don't got to do nothing. Now all you got to do is just collect money, and anything that gets taken out as an expense, as far as paying taxes or paying third parties to operate the situation for you, that's the cost of doing business. Because the rest of the time you rolling out of bed and you just living life, and money gets deposited on the same time on a regular basis. And then after that, you just spend money. Now, I've noticed that certain places like banks that are allowing you, Bayside said, now X would most tax preparers know how to deal with this. Yeah, you're right. I would know. what's his name? Joe Mastrano knows how to deal with a lot of this stuff. We had him on the show several months ago. And if you guys want to know more information about the taxation and stuff, I can give you guys information to him. You can call him up, let him know that this and that told you to come. He'll give you 10% off on your consultations and stuff. So take a look at that. But basically, I said so much game. Thank you, Xander. Oh, you're welcome. That's what I'm here for. That's the whole reason why I did the show. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna be talking about all kind of shit because it's all about how do you make money and give less money away. Because I mean, yeah, if you're going to give money away, you want to give money away to a good cause. But what is a good cause? A good cause that you see direct benefit in. If you're doing charitable stuff, that builds reputation for you as a person. If you're doing charitable stuff representing a company or an entity, that builds clout for that company or the entity. With social media being around out here, if people see you doing charitable stuff that you are documenting and reporting on social media, now you're publicly transparent nonprofit organization doing charitable actions. So there is no fraud in my discussions. You're doing it. Your tax deductions. You can then run the grants.gov. You can get funding for the stuff that you're already doing. There's a fiscal reimbursement grant that's given out every year for the money that you spent to operate your nonprofit last year when it comes down to rent and utilities and stuff like that for your nonprofit. If you've got a legitimate overhead projection of the money that you spent last year to run your operation, this year you can file for a fiscal reimbursement grant where they can give you all that money back, which you can spend that money on the exact same stuff this year. But since you're getting a grant from the government, now instead of it coming out of your pocket, it's coming out of the U.S. government's pocket. So that's extra money that for your operation. Little things like that is stuff that you can invest in stuff. And they've got a lot of companies out there right now that will donate money to your nonprofit if your nonprofit can show that your nonprofit is doing stuff in the community of that company. And then you can utilize those donations to expand your operation, utilize social media to promote your operation. And then as a nonprofit on social media, anybody with a heart will donate to your operation through either your social media channel or PayPal. And then here's a funny thing. If you've got PayPal allows you to borrow up to $250,000 worth of working capital, which means that you're borrowing against your income, not your credit score. And the funny thing about this is that it is based off of the amount of money that is paid into your PayPal account on a monthly basis. If you have more than $20,000 a year being deposited into your PayPal account, you can ask them for a certain quantity of money where you are expecting to pay it over a certain period of time. And depending upon the amount borrowed versus the installments that you're intending on paying and the amount of time that you're planning on paying that, you could get approved for a cash loan against the capital. And working capital loans are easier to get because it's based off of the proof that you're making this much money on a regular basis. And you just want to take a percentage of that and get an advancement on your situation. Now, I told you guys before, if you can find loans, and we did a loan show before in two ways. We did one where you can loan money to other people for a reasonable interest rate and turn yourself a profit off of helping people out. We told you about loaning money to people for their taxes, for their tax liens on their properties, where instead of paying the tax lien for them, you have a contract with them where they pay the tax lien with your money, and then they pay you back over time for the amount of money that you help them cover their taxes so that they don't lose their house. You can do the same thing with mortgages. You can remortgage the house where you pay off their mortgage the house, and now they owe you instead of owing whatever mortgage company that they owed. You can offer them a reasonable interest rate on top of whatever it is that you covered for them. Now they got to pay you. You've got to lien on the house for an amount of money that they owe you. So if they don't pay you, you still get the house. There are ways where you can loan your money and make money, and you could be utilizing the high reward from the high risk borrower, because if they can't get funding from somebody else, they're going to do whatever it takes to get it from you. You just got to cross your T's and dot your I's to make sure that they can't walk on your situation. Right now, the other thing that you've got going on is if you're borrowing money, if you're borrowing cash and you're investing in high interest stuff, if the amount of money that you're borrowing has a lower interest rate than the investment, then the profit from your investment is going to be the difference between what you've got to pay the lender versus what you made off of the stock option, which is why I started telling you guys about cash stocks. Because if you go and borrow 20 grand, like take about what happened in November. Remember when Donald Trump became president, Bitcoin went from 60 grand to 90 grand. If you would have took a $50,000 loan or a $100,000 loan out in November, put it into Bitcoin, when Bitcoin tripled like that, you would have had 300 grand by December. You could have cashed out on that Bitcoin, paid back the loan, had 200 grand left, and you would have been good. Situations like that is the ways that you can borrow money and invest. Now, it is not always going to work that way, especially if you're going to play it safe. You can borrow money on like an 18% loan interest situation, and then you're going to be investing in something that's going to give you 15 to 20%, where you might break even on the loan versus the profit. But if you're adding money to the scenario, by the time you finish paying off this loan, one, you have a boost in your credit score, but two, you still have the whole loan in an investment portfolio where they are paid off, you still got money, and it's still generating you revenue after the loan is taken care of. It's a twofer. As opposed to just saying, oh, well, if I'm going to break even, it's not a benefit. How not? If you can borrow 20 grand right now while the market is down, and you can invest it somewhere where the money that they're going to be paying you from your investment is more than the monthly installment for the loan, why not? The money that the interest from the investment is going to pay off the loan will be done. The money is still sitting there. You still got 20 grand there, and that 20 grand you would not have been able to get in the span of the loan period. Because what if you got a 5-year loan? It's 20 grand. If you are not capable of putting away 20 grand on your own, but you have the sense to borrow and invest in something where the interest from the investment will pay that loan for the 5 years and the loan will get paid off, why not set yourself up with an extra 20 grand? Because again, if the dividends paid to you is paying off a loan, it's not going to be taxed because you're not turning a profit. You're still paying off a debt. And that means that you just bank 20 grand. This is some of the ways that the wealthy stay wealthy and get wealthier. So we try to talk about these things on the show so that you guys have other alternatives to get yourselves out of that hole and get yourselves into better ways to make yourself make money for you. If you've got family and friends that you have their personal information set up, you can take out life insurance policies on everybody and put them into the trust. If the trust, or put the trust as a beneficiary of those life insurance policies. If the trust is making enough money to pay for the life insurance policies, you're not paying anything out of pocket. And then if somebody dies before they're supposed to, millions of dollars go into the trust. Trust can reinvest that stuff. Then the money that's coming from those investments can go to a trust that goes to a trust that goes to you. And now you're getting direct profits from somebody else's loss, where in a situation, had it gone to you directly, you would have had to pay a probate tax, which means you probably would have lost 10 to 20% of the money that they would have gave you. You're not losing that now because it went somewhere else, where it went somewhere else before it came to you. And whatever's coming to you is not taxed because it went in as a principal, came out as a principal without earning an income. That's the key factor of not being taxed on trust. Trusts are taxable income. If you put money in, that income makes a profit, and then you get paid off of that profit. But if the money goes into the trust money gets donated to a trust. It's a donation. That's a Schedule K. And the donation is a principal installment, and that principal installment goes to a beneficiary. That beneficiary did not get a profit from an investment. That's why it's not taxable. Now, all of this stuff is crazy, and we're like 2.5 hours into the show. But this is why I tell you guys that you guys got to come to the show. You got to look at some of the older shows. We go live 7 days a week. We're talking about all kinds of stuff. But if you go back to some of the older shows and look at, because we had side hustles where you can make extra money. We had startup things that you can work on. We had ways for you to get loans, ways for you to get funding, all of these things that we talk about on the show. And like, this is common knowledge, because I had to do research to compile this stuff together to give it to you. And nobody knew that this stuff existed. The top 1% knows that it exists. That's why they're the top 1%. The only thing that holds back a good idea, there's two things that really holds back a good idea. Three things, really, now that I think about it. Fear is going to be one of them. Fear to take action is going to be one of them. The lack of motivation is going to be another one. Those two things are things that you can change immediately. If you change wondering if I can afford that to it's the cost of doing business, now you just got to see how much does it cost and find out if you can make it your business to make more money off of it than what it costs. Then you don't have to worry about the first two. The third one is having enough money to invest into it to begin with. Now, there's a lot of ways to go about and getting that money, whether you're borrowing it from somebody else, maxing out credit cards, charging stuff to the game. If you build up lines of credit and you charge your principal standard of living to your credit cards and then use the cash that you would have been putting on those bills onto this investment, there's all kinds of ways that you can go about doing it. And there's no right way to get it done as far as getting extra money, including taking out SBA loans, which typically SBA loans are given to businesses, LLCs, and C corporations, like I told you to set up, if it is backed by a good credit score outside of private lenders, where they will lend you money. And sometimes the money that they're lending you has either an extended rate or some situations where if the criteria is met, no requirement to repay on a loan. You get it, and then it is a exemption. Fact is, and it's not considered a profit because it is investing in the startup, development, or expansion of your business, whatever your business is. Long as you've got the credit score to support that SBA loan, they'll hold you down. Now, since you're getting the SBA loan based off of whatever business plan that you have, whatever model that you're designing, you get the money from the SBA loan. And then once you get that money from the SBA loan, then you're supposed to utilize that money to make more money back than what you're expecting to pay them. And that's all it takes. So establishing yourself good credit, having yourself an LLC and or a C corporation, and then utilizing your good credit to qualify for an SBA loan, where the SBA loan might have cheaper interest rates than a bank loan or a hard money loan or a private loan entity. Then you take that money, you invest it somewhere, you turn a profit, you take that profit and you pay off the SBA loan. And because you paid off the SBA loan, you not only have good business credit, you also qualify to borrow more money from the SBA. Which means you can create an investment platform. Now, here's another thing that you can do. I told you about this on the other shows, where you can start up a situation where you are selling shares to your company. This is where investment companies come from, where you're selling shares of your company. And when you're selling shares to your company and people are donating large quantities of money to your company in order to turn a profit off of your company, when they give you money, and let's say they give you money and you're going to offer them 5% interest on the money that they give you. You take their money, you put it somewhere where it's making you 10 or 15% interest. You're going to give them back their 5% interest, and you're going to keep the difference, which is 5% profit off of somebody giving you money. But the only way that's going to work is if you can show them that your business is making profits, which is where the quarterly reports and the monthly reports and annual reports from all of the stock options that we invest in comes from. If the business is making money, then people will put their money into the business, where the business will use their money to offset their debt, and then they'll give you back a payment for using your money to pay their debt. And then they keep the difference off the profit. Now, with all of the stuff that we were talking about with the protest turning into a watershed moment, highlighting the discontinued support that we had from other countries with Donald Trump's administration and the global community, we understood that situations like the America First mantra has been perceived as a rejection of global corporations, further fueling the flames of discontent. Now, Trump's rhetoric on immigration, trade, and national security has created a sense of unease, prompting many to question their place in the world. I had a couple of students of mine that were talking to me about how they had friends that wanted their child to be an American citizen. They're not American citizens, and they were concerned about the new laws that are passed where you cannot come here as an immigrant and get your child's citizenship. You have to get citizenship first and then get your child's citizenship after that. And some states have tried to reject the bill that was passed by the president. And they were asking me, well, can we still come to America and get it? If a state gives you a birth certificate for your kid for the U.S. government with a social security number, every other state will respect it. You have to find a state that is not supporting the bill. If you find a state that's not supporting the bill, then you're good to go. But if you find a state, because think about the ban on TikTok, 40 states ban TikTok. Now, what that means is that they're not allowing you to send out a transmission on the platform. You can receive a transmission from the platform, but you're not allowed to send out a transmission from the platform because they blocked it. Now, they can't block all the airways, but they blocked a lot of the airways. Now, here's the funny thing, because people think, oh, TikTok is going to bounce back in full effect. The 40 states that doesn't want TikTok to air in those states, because the government, federal law is loosely written. State law has the right and privilege to make stricter laws in addition to whatever law that comes out. And then, the city inside of the state can make a stricter law on top of the state law. So you got to figure out what your city, state, what your county, city, state, and federal law is for that one situation, to make sure that there are no two entities that have a conflicting law where one of those laws is not in your favor. Now, funny thing is that as a content creator, if you're in a state that has banned TikTok, you can't stream out because they can't see you. They probably can hear your voice, but they can't see you because of the restrictions. But as a content user, you might be able to see other people who have put their content out there. So you can't live stream from the US in states that have banned TikTok, but you can upload pre-recorded videos to the platform, and then it can be seen by people in the United States. Ain't that some shit? So, likewise, you have to find the ins and outs of how everything is working in your favor and how everything is not working in your favor, so that you can find a workaround. And that's why I tell you guys all of these different ways where you can find a way to make yourself more financially successful. Because if you find a way to make yourself more financially successful, you can invest more money in more places. And instead of it being an expense that you have to find a way to afford, you recognize that it's a cost of doing business, and you find a way to make a profit off of the expense. If the goal is to turn a profit off of the expense, and then the profits that are taxable, the goal is to bypass taxation by making tax exemptable or tax deductible purchases. Now you're trying to spend money so that you don't got to pay taxes, as opposed to trying to make money to afford to pay bills. It's a completely different mindset. And once you change that mindset, things start becoming easier for you. Trump's presidency has become a lightning rod for the opposition, drawing attention to the deep-seated issues plaguing society worldwide. Nevertheless, amidst all the chaos and controversy, there's one statement that stands out, and that statement may come to define Trump's presidency and its impact on the world. He said, "We're going to win so bigly." He declared this statement during his inaugural address, and it was a promise of victory, of triumph, of a new era of American greatness, which we've noticed that as the tariffs continue to thrive, Trump's ability to reduce the deficit is leading to the increased value of the US dollar, which is negatively impacting currency exchange for other countries, because now American dollar is worth more. But that benefits us that are going over there from the US with US currency, because if the US dollar is valued higher in other countries than what it used to be, you could go there with less and get more, which gives you the ability to invest in more over there, or give you more capital to utilize for a better standard of living in another country while making profits from America. Because again, you can make money from American businesses that are owned by a trust, and then have those trusts send it to a trust offshore, and that trust send it to whatever country that your money is in, which is the craziest thing. And for many, it sounds like it's a threat, but a warning that Trump's presidency would be marked by conflict, division, and a ruthless pursuit of power. So I thought that that was very interesting. Special shout out to Matthew Howard, first time tonight. Pray that this one's positive. He says, sure. Every economist in the world disagrees. You're looking to explain something away you don't want to admit. Republicans are frauds. Well, I appreciate you coming to the show, Matt. I want you to explain that to me. Now, because I'm interested in this, because I am not a Republican, and I'm not coming here to promote Donald Trump. And if you got some comments appropriately stated, you have the ability to click that link, approve the mic, approve the camera, come on to the show in real time and state your piece. I am curious to know exactly what your position is on it, because yeah, as it stands right now, I, I'm concerned about your observation of what this show is actually about. I think that you might be coming from the left field. You're telling me that I'm trying to explain away. Well, I don't know. I can't say that you're saying that I'm trying to explain it away. I think you might believe that other economists might be trying to explain it away, because I wouldn't even classify myself as an economist. I would classify myself as an individual that is sharing public knowledge with the public, where it is organized in a fashion where you can make better decisions and improve yourself financially and improve your decision-making process and build generational wealth and potentially retire before you die, where you can spend a portion of your life, hopefully 25% of it at least, not having to work and being able to enjoy the standard of living that you choose, as opposed to accepting whatever's left or living off of the government, where the amount of money that you're getting from the government forces you into low-income housing scenarios. Now, I don't know how what I do and what you're talking about coincide with one another. But when you say that, well, first of all, you said that the world disagrees, and you're saying that I am looking to explain something away that I don't want to admit. What am I explaining away? Make it make sense for me, Matt. Because I mean, the world is watching you right now. Open challenge. And so far, what we've got like 12 or 13 countries around the world. some of the highest following countries that are listening to what you have to say. So make sure that you be careful with what you say, because the whole world is watching right now. But Russia, Vietnam, United Kingdom, India, Germany, Australia, South Africa, Mexico, Canada, Indonesia, Philippines, Romania, Brazil, Nepal, Ukraine, Belarus, and Uzbekistan are some of the countries that watch this show heavily. Okay. Just to name a few, in addition to the United States, and make it make sense as to how I'm trying to explain away. Because if you watch the show from 2 hours and 30 minutes ago, we were talking about how the interest rates were going up. We were talking about how real estate wasn't the way we expected it to go. We were talking about how the tariffs were causing the taxation from the electric company. We were talking about how electric batteries cost 20 years of fossil fuels to make, which is pre-polluting the planet before the electric car is made. So electric cars do not save on the environment. It doesn't really positively impact the environment unless the car lasts for 20 years. And with the average car having 100 to 200,000 miles of limit on the battery, you would have to have the car drive less than 200,000 miles in 25 years and not be totaled out in order to improve the economy and turn you a profit, because a $20,000 increase on the value of the car cost you more money than a gas power car, where you would not see a true profit on the ownership of an electric car until you've owned the car for 20 to 25 years. Explain to me how a Republican position exists in that conversation, and then explain to me how I am trying to explain away something that I don't want to admit. What is it that I'm not admitting? I would like to know. What is it that you think I'm trying to explain away? And what is it that you believe that the world disagrees with when I'm talking about what I'm talking about on this show? Because what I'm talking about is how the average middle class and low income individual is negatively impacted about the changes that's happening around the world. That's not a Republican position, because this isn't a Republican podcast. Then how short-term changes is having drastic impacts on day-to-day life. Who's disagreeing with that? Because I ain't heard nobody tell me that I'm wrong, that inflation doesn't impact them. So make it make sense, Matt. You got the floor, buddy. And this is crazy because I gave you an open challenge, because you can click that link, approve the mic, approve the camera. I can bring you on, and you don't even got to spend 30 minutes trying to type it and edit it, or Google search it and then type it and edit it and stick it in the comment section. You can literally click that click the link, approve the mic, approve the camera. I can bring you up onto the show, and you can just tell me exactly what you're talking about right now. Just saying. Because I am fascinated about individuals that disagree when they don't even have anything to disagree with. Because here on This and That, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between, what we do is we try to make it make sense. So if you don't agree with what we got going on, I'm not going to say that you're wrong. I want to know what you don't agree with and why. Because I haven't said anything to disagree with. I haven't come from a political position. Because again, as a Democratic Party, I agree with making money. So I could care less which party is making me money. I tell people on a regular basis that you're not supposed to vote for an individual or a policy or a bill specifically because it is represented by a political party. I specifically tell people that you look at how that political party or the policies pushed by that political party directly impacts your standard of living. If it positively impacts your standard of living, vote for it. If it negatively impacts your standard of living, vote against it. Just like I was telling you guys, while they were doing away with the Department of Education, I told you public schools or non-taxable entities, 501c3 entities. And I told you guys, put your kids in public school instead of private school. Spend that $2,000, $3,000 a month on the public school instead of the private school. The private school, that's just a bill. But the public school, that's a donation. You get a receipt from the public school every time you give the school money. Then when you file your taxes, you give that to the government. Guess what they're going to do? Take that off the amount of taxes that you owe. So you're giving the school money that you're not going to have to give the government, which keeps the government from having to give that school money. If every parent that goes to that school, 200, 300, 400, 500, 700 kids that go to that school, and every parent that goes to the public school gives the public school money, and then write that off on their taxes, we wouldn't need private schools. Private schools will go out of business. Community colleges, same thing. Harvard offering free tuition to people who make under $200,000 a year, just like a community college. They're increasing their membership by taking in more people, because if they don't have enough students going to the school, what's going to happen? School's going to close down. If you move your money to a place where it benefits you, your money that you're spending is going to make money for you or save you money. So if you've got to put that money out regardless, put it in a place where it benefits you financially. Now, Matt, where in that statement am I wrong? And then, what about my statement makes me an economist? Because I'm not pro-economy, I'm not anti-nationalist or anything to that effect. I'm a business mindset where I invest in people, because my legacy is the success of the people around me. Like all of the great people from the past that didn't have to fight and die in a war, who positively impacted their environment, from motivating and inspiring their environment through effort to make change. Those people are remembered in history for years to come, idolized and memorialized in history for generations because of what they did for the entire society. Idealism, visualism, not necessarily blowing something up and forcing change. And the fact is that legacy outlasts your money. Now, generational wealth, that's different, because a legacy of my reputation to motivate and inspire people, like Stefan, the late Stefan. You can go to his podcast. His podcast is still running by somebody else. Man died in his videos. They're making shorts out of his videos and putting them back out there, because that was a wise man when he was alive. His legacy outlived him. Take Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey has built a legacy. His reputation will outlive him. And not just as a comedian, as a motivational speaker, inspiring and motivating people to make better decisions in their lives, regardless of whether or not he behaves that way in his personal life. The fact that when he gets up in front of a group of people, he's telling them how they need to change the way they think so that their lives don't suck. Now, that's not a political position. That's not an economic standpoint. I just know that you can't talk about fixing your life without talking about fixing your money. You can't talk about doing better business if you're distracted with personal affairs. So you have to fix your income so that you can fix your personal affairs, and you have to fix your personal affairs so that you can focus on making more money. So we divide the show in half. Half the week we talk about making money. The other half of the week we talk about fixing yourself. First person accountability. So this is, again, not going to be a type of podcast. It's going to sit here and bitch complain about how life sucks and how the country sucks and how the world sucks and how the man is keeping us down. This is a show that's talking about how, you know what, hey, there's shit that exists right now that if you took advantage of it, you could probably make yourself a millionaire before this man gets out of office. If you're not a millionaire, and I'm sitting over here talking about how you can make yourself to a millionaire without just some of the stuff that we talked about in the last 3 hours, if you just took the information that I gave you and put that to action, you could find yourself with a couple $100,000 in the next 2 to 4 years if you do it right, if not more than that, where you ain't got to work, living off of the principal. The book that I got from Brett Owens. I was talking to you guys, how to retire off of 8% dividends. A whole book about investment where you're investing in certain things, where you buy and hold, and the interest, the dividends paid to you off of the interest, monthly and quarterly, ends up giving you enough income to sustain whatever standard of living that you want. That's when you quit working. And if you make a little bit more than that, you can travel the world at the same time and maintain the standard of living that you want. You ain't got to do nothing else. Now, you could do it just for yourself, or you could do it in a way like we're talking about with these trusts, where you can set it up where your kids, your kids, your great-great-grandkids can benefit from this, where you could spend the last 25 years of your life, or the last 25% of your life, teaching the next 2 generations how to get on board what you built. Teach the next 2 or 3 generations how to maintain what you built. Finding the most responsible person in your legacy, making that person the secondary trustee of the situation, so that that secondary trustee can come in and take over when you pass on. Where the situation keeps those behind you successful for years to come, because yet again, not only do you have a hereditary legacy of financial estate, you have a hereditary reputation of development and growth, because you're going to teach everybody else how you made yourself successful. And you're going to teach everybody else how they can make themselves successful. Then you're going to teach your legacy how to keep your success, keeping them successful. And the motivation for you to follow what I said is because you are getting paid to do it. Now, again, Matt, I still put the challenge out there. How does what I say be wrong? Or did you just look at the title of the show and thought, oh, he's a Republican, I'm going to come in and talk trash about a Republican and fuel him to promote how awesome Republicans are? Because I'm not going to do that. But I'm glad to know that for the past 15 minutes now, you've been afraid to come back up and give me a clear response. Because, you know, again, if I went wrong, I'd love to know about it. So, since he's not willing to tell us what's going on, what are you guys' verdict? Is Trump's presidency sparking a revolution around the world, or is it just a fleeting moment of chaos that we're just going to have to trump through with our financial investments? Because while the market is volatile based on all of these half-ass, high-risk opportunities, we can put our money in the right spot and go from being broke to being rich in the next 12 months. We can deal with an upturn if we catch it on its way down. And then by the time this man gets out of office in 4 years, we'll be financially stable. Or we can sit back and watch changes happen in the economy and miss the next wave. You guys got to understand that usually every 8 years or so, we have a recession. We had one in 2019 that we felt in 2021. It's the beginning of one right now that we're not going to fully feel until this time next year. But as it's going down, now is the time to buy in as you can afford it. Because once it stabilizes and goes back up, the market is not going to be affordable by you. So instead of waiting until the market starts going up and then trying to find money to invest in the market on its way up, invest in the market as it's going down. That way, when the market does start to improve, because it will, it always does. And when the market starts to improve, you will be reaping the rewards, because your investments will already be there when the market starts going up. So as we navigate the twists and turns of the turbulent era that we're living in, one thing is certain: the world will never be the same again. The tariffs are creating a complex economic environment that is influencing interest rates and loan terms across various sectors, with the potential for long-term impacts on borrowing costs and availability. If you guys think Trump's influence will lead to a lasting change, let me know in the comments down below, especially you, Matt Howard. Definitely let me know. And if you want to explore more political revolutions, be sure to check out some of the previous videos that we've put up about this. And then also take a look at some of the videos that we're going to be having coming up, because I know tomorrow we're supposed to be talking about the brokerages that you guys can invest in that will help you guys make money for yourself. We're going to be talking about Chile and Dubai on Wednesday, places where you can invest and put your money into so that you can make money for yourself. I think that Usman was asking me about real estate companies that you can invest in and some non-interest-backed debt companies that you can invest in over in Dubai. I'm going to be giving you, because I've seen an individual that wants to broker deals for you in real estate, and he'll fly you out there and show you all of the best places to invest in as long as you buy the properties through him. I'm going to find this information. I'm going to be talking about this stuff. So we're going to be talking about ways to make money in other countries as well as make money in America. We're going to be talking about ways where if you're traveling, it is considered business travel, even if it's a vacation. Because if you spend 20 hours out of your vacation doing work, it's a business trip. And 20 hours out of your vacation is 4 hours a day, 5 days out of the week. And that's if you're doing 5 days. If you're going to be out there for a 7-day week, you might be able to do 2.5 to 3 hours a day every day of the week, where you're either talking about business or strategizing about business, or actually doing a business transaction, where your trips around the world can be considered business trips. And like I told you guys before about building that LLC, if your wife and your children are employees of the business, it's not a family vacation, it's a business retreat, which means that all of the stuff that you guys do, since the whole family is going to be working towards a business transaction, business conversations at dinner and lunch and breakfast and everything like that, that the whole vacation is a business trip. And the allowance that you give to your children when you turn your children into personal assistants, the allowance that you give your children is deductible off of your expenses. And the allowance that you give to your children under the minimum tax allowance, which is somewhere between 13.5 and 14.6 thousand per year, gives your kids a decent allowance annually, which you can teach them how to invest and save. But because your kids are getting an allowance from you, they pay for everything that is not a bare necessity, which means that you're not wasting money on their video games. You're not wasting money on their Fortnite subscriptions. You're not wasting money on any of the stuff the kids want, because if they want it, they could pay for it with their own money. Make money for the family, pay for your stuff. You're teaching them responsibility. You're teaching them financial literacy. You're turning a profit off of that. And then you can invest that profit on their tuition. You can invest that profit on their success for their future, so they're not making financially irresponsible decisions as an adult. Because it is better for you to teach your children to be financially responsible than it is for you to give your children a stack of cash and hope that the money lasts until they die. If you teach them how to be responsible, the money will never run out. If you hand them a large chunk of change, they can go bankrupt, especially if they're throwing around $100,000 in a night. With that being said, that's all I got for you guys for tonight. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe as you come through. Always remember, you can hit those reaction buttons throughout the show support, so that we can get more intellectual people like Matt coming in and providing us with some insight. Greatly appreciate that. Special shout out to Usman, Matt, and Satellite for coming in tonight. And Bayside, definitely. Bayside's been a long while. I think you rode the wave with me the whole 3 hours tonight. You had to have been taking a whole lot of notes. Like, hey, I'm gonna go look this shit up. This man got some knowledge on him. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we do. Yes, sir, we do. With that being said, we're going to be starting the night off we're going to be trying to tee it off at about 10 o'clock Central Standard Time, 11 o'clock Florida time, 7 o'clock California time in the PM hours. Sometimes we start a little bit late, quarter till. Well, not quarter till. Sometimes it's 10:15, sometimes it's 10:30, but we're going to be trying to start close to around 10 o'clock. Then, we try to do like an hour, 2 hours on a show, 3 hours sometimes like tonight, with a lot of information. So we try to gather a lot of information every day. So it is fresh information. Information is not more than 24 hours old. So it's new to life, which possibly could last 6 to 9 months. And depending on how the economy shifts, this information might still be valuable this time next year, especially when it's strategies and plans. The financial status of certain stocks and trends and stuff might shift, but how to go about doing stuff, that's never going to change. So you guys can always double back and look at some of these things and take notes on some of these shows, because I keep all of my lives up there as post-release. So you guys can always go back and look at what you missed. If you jumped in the show halfway through and you're like, damn, I wonder what he was talking about a few hours ago. You could just double back and go take a look at that. Beyond that, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. We've had a few thousand views off of each one of the songs from the This and That album that was released in December. So we're actually pretty excited about that. Special shout out to alanito.music in Switzerland and Danny in Denmark, who is the promoter. I really appreciate you guys for giving us exclusive soundtracks for the channel. For those of you that wish to hang out for that, make sure that you guys continue to like and subscribe and utilize those reaction buttons as you listen to Higher Ground. And the links to all of the tracks that you hear on this podcast are in the description down below or off to the side if you're watching from the shorts reel. And you can click those links to either purchase it, download it. It's on iTunes, Amazon Prime, Spotify, and YouTube. YouTube for free. You can watch it and listen to it for free. But all of the other places that you can buy it and download it, like iTunes, Spotify, and other such places, you can go and get it from there. But it can be heard everywhere music is played. You just got to take the names of the songs, type them into the search bar, and it'll pop up for you. You can enjoy those songs. So take a look. Now, for anybody that wants to hang out during the outro of the show, listening to the song, and you guys got some positive comments, like Matt's comment or Bayside's comments or Satellite's comments, you guys can continue throwing comments into the comment section, and you will see them appear during the outro if you guys put up some new comments. So about 75% of us are dudes. This is a male-driven podcast from a male's perspective, and we are really enjoying the women coming in and learning some new things and hopefully implementing them. So fellas, keep showing us love, keep showing us that support. Thank you guys for coming to This and That. Special shout out to Red Void real quick. I'm the 81 Liberty Twitcher from Twitch. I saw you guys all night long, so I want to give you guys a special shout out. And Danny Steffen, Reese Martinez, Max the Poser, Mr. Pibbs, Usman, Satellite, Bayside, Nico, Victoria B. A special shout out to all of you guys, especially. I really appreciate you guys for providing fantastic insight throughout the show every night, every week that we do this. So I really appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. I will see you guys tomorrow night.
Higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate myself. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command.